course. But today there'll be another one to join alongside him. And as you mentioned, the names speak for themselves at this point. Puppypaw up against Anotand is the first half of our semi-final. And Wham and Beastie on the other side of that semi-final. And either of these winners of these two sets will meet, of course, in the finals. And the winner will move on. And everyone else is gone and tries again next week.
Well, you have to keep in mind, these guys have played already last week. Puppypaw and Anotand faced off against one another, and Puppypaw took down Anotand 3-0. So, for Anotand, this is a hill to climb. But honestly, if there's anyone who can do it, and after seeing that performance from this week, I believe in the Anotand. If he can conquer the puppy, that's exactly what we need here for him to reign supreme. But on the other side as well, we have Wham and Beastie. Same thing. Last week, Beastie beat Wham 3-1. So both of these guys, they are currently faced in a matchup where there's going to need to be a lot of work done to get out on top.
Exactly right. Past history between the way players are matched up can play a significant factor, not only in how you would predict them to go, but also on the player's mental. You know, you can't help but check every once in a while your statistics in the head-to-head against the fellow player that you're going to be playing against and see how you stack up exactly historically. And it can be a double-edged sword, of course. You might like what you see, but then you might also very much dislike what you see. And we can see the head-to-head at this very moment indeed. Puppypaw, a bit of a lead there, 58.8% win rate, 10 series to Anotand 7. The game count, of course, reflects that, only to 55.7%. But this is pretty close, Whammon, right? I mean, this is not really... This doesn't mean that this is just automatically a Puppypaw win, naturally. We see their last encounters there. Anotand has a good win there in the Masters of Steel. That was a memorable one indeed. So it's not like most recently Puppypaw has been winning or Anotand has been winning recently, but not historically. It's all mixed.
Now, this is something that I think for a lot of players, you have to be in the right headspace of. Because, of course, with these two, they're pretty evenly matched. But Puppypaw, as we can see, one of those results is missing here from that last week's performance. So, Anotand performing a little better live. But we all know that this man, the Puppypaw, is the law. And we'll see what he says about that law being brought in today. Now, we do have the draft in front of us, but the game is almost about to begin. On Kawa-san, getting a little bit of that tuck luck, and I am so excited to see that, because tuck luck keeps getting sniped in all these maps. But when you have a choice between tuck luck and Zushi, I can definitely understand why he rather lets tuck luck through.
Yeah, Jushu on this map is not something you ever want to face or be the victim of, really. The timing is just so potent, using the meditation guns in the center. It's been a downfall of many, many players to the point now where it's very well respected. Jushi, for a lot of these water maps and hybrid maps, it's essentially like Ottoman is for land. But then again, Ottoman's also really good on these hybrid maps, so who can really know? Well, did you hear that right, Whammon? I think the game is ready.
It's time! Ladies and gents, let's roll in and see our beautiful little Kawa-san spawn. We have both on more or less the same side. And this is the interesting part about Kawa-san, right? So this map can spawn in a few different varieties. And usually when you scout, you have to keep track of this because it's not always that mirrored spawn that we usually see with the horizontal mirror coming through. But here we have a, little bit more of a diagonal situation for ourselves. And that means that most likely, both players will make a play on that first same pond if they decide both to go for water. But I do see a little yellow dot coming out there. And as far as I can see on this UI, we do not... the Khan spots it, and he decides rather he's going to go for the other lake. And this is the problem with Kawa-san. In the early game, when you spawn like this, very often those early fights will be on the same pond. But up against Delhi and Taklak, that's not something you want to fight, because those fishing ships are of the spicy variety.
I am a little bit surprised, though, to see this shift all the way to the other pond here by Anotand. You're completely right, the fishing ships, that's one of the big strengths of the Tughlaq and Delhi historically here on these kind of maps. The fishing ships being able to shoot means you can often just deny a dock entirely from the opponent, but Anotand's timing was fine. The fishing ship was not going to deny the dock, and you could, in theory, use the fishing ships to harass the opponent's fishing ships, but the damage is very minimal. The dock healing in the background is going to prevent any real kill on any of those fishing ships at the end of the day. And if you're shooting the fishing ships with your own, then it means you're not gathering fish, so it's not really an optimal thing to do. So I'm a bit surprised to see this sort of hesitation from Anotand in that regard, but he might have something else on his mind. Mongols is a quite interesting pick here on Kawasan and other water maps historically. They have been one of the best, if we're looking at all time, the way they have performed. So many great bonuses. They're historically one of the best Dark Age civilizations, courtesy of that stone Uvu double production in Dark Age, of course. Allow you to get so many spears out if necessary. Not much of a concern here, with the fishing ships being able to shoot, but once you do age up to that Feudal Age, that stone grants you easy access to arrow slits, and fighting into arrow slits is the bane of any ship.
Now, I love to see the fact that we do get a barracks in the end here. Puppypaw going for that second dock. He doesn't mind playing the water on both sides here. Now, with that barracks, you of course have the ability to get those spears out. You're going to be able to start putting a little bit of pressure. But usually with the Mongols, that's what they go for first. This delayed dock is an interesting choice to me here. And why would you say this might just work, Myriad? With those spears, you go up against the Taklak, and like I mentioned, the fishing ships shoot, but damage is minimal. It should be still enough for a spearman or two to be deterred from attacking. So why is this a decision that Anotand makes at this point?
It can always be useful to prevent further docking from Puppypaw's villagers. The village often stands next to the dock fishing after it has been built, but the presence of spears, and as you mentioned, the fishing ships, although they do damage, it's pretty minimal, and a couple of fishing ships will not deter a few spearmen from even giving their lives if necessary to make sure the villager is dead and can build no further. Speaking of, the Khan has spotted the target and already worked plenty of its health down, and I think the spearman will be here just in time. We might even have the Khan signal arrow to give the movement speed, but opts against it instead, moves around the wood line. The charge comes through, the first one connects, and the second one as well. Now, the spearmen do lose movement speed at this point, so the question is critical as to whether this villager will get back. Body blocking does commence. One more hit will for sure connect from the spears. Make that a second, and that's enough. The Khan will finish it off as well, and that's a big loss for Puppypaw early.
And it has paid off. Myriad, 2 spears investment. It's already done its job. This must feel so good for Anotand here. Now, getting Taklak a little bit behind, economically at least. You have to wonder now if Puppypaw on this double lake situation you put him on, if he's going to be able to sustain this. But he's going to be the first guy aging up. And usually this gives that momentum, of course, because you can get the first military ship out, you idle out the fishing economy, even if just for a few extra seconds, it definitely helps out. And look at those 2 feisty spears. They are securing that gold mine pretty quickly, which just means that the Dome of the Faith is not going to be producing scholars as... Wait, this is not the same Dome of the Faith. Oh my goodness, I just realized. We're here with the Taklak dynasty. I see this, and every single time my brain goes to Delhi, scholars, gold. But in the end, it's all fake. We just need to win water here.
Oh, don't you worry. There are scholars coming out of this landmark, but they're not alone, that's for sure. They have a partner and an elephant to ride on, so yeah, that's definitely a bit different, but still very potent indeed. And this open is quite interesting here from Anotand. A conscious choice has been made, hasn't it? We delayed ourselves intentionally here for these 2 spears, for potentially the profit of killing a villager, but the delay is significant, and right now, actually, there's nothing building Anotand's landmark. What's going on?
I think
Zero
he
on
just...
the distos. Is this a misclick? He doesn't realize. Oh, this is a terrible misclick from Anotand. This is actually massive. And... well, speaking of delay, it turns out the delay is way more significant than we anticipated because of this. He has to notice that soon, he must, because there's already a Bagla on the right Kawasan pond here, and the villager himself is under threat soon enough, and the fishing boats are already idle. Only now he has noticed, but this is critical delay.
This just means his response will be so late. And the problem is Puppypaw will have that momentum on the water already. You see Puppypaw, even after all of this, he's just like, I'm gonna build more fishing ships, actually. I don't need to worry about just pumping out military. And that's exactly what happens here. Look at those little spicy fishing ships just pushing off that vill from the pond. Now, they may not be farming, but they're definitely getting their value. And another villager falls. The spearmen are on top. He's desperate for this gold. But Anotand is on fire on this little wood line and on the gold. But at the same time, the water is getting a little hairy. Let's see what Anotand responds with. We do see him already doing a little bit of research there, getting all of those docks reinforced, because Puppypaw, he says, the law is enforced on this water, and it is now mine.
You'd have to be extremely careful in this position, even as the Mongols, although you can get the arrow slits very easily, that's further delay on your military ship production. Because of course, researching the arrow slits takes a fair amount of time as well, and although they'll be useful defensively, by the time your arrow slit finish, your opponent might already have the tri-ship combination, which now Puppypaw looks to utilize as he scratches away at the galley, but is met by his own demo behind. Doesn't quite have the damage to do it in one hit, but the arrow slits may finish it off, but no, it's out of range at this point. Puppy detonates his own demo, but again, the passive reparations from the dock as well as the fishing ship ensure that it stays alive for now. Another demo though. Puppy, there's no good angle here for Anotand to engage with the demo without losing it. He detonates his demo defensively to chip the demo coming from Puppypaw in turn to destroy his own springboard ship. It's just demo on demo.
Now, Puppypaw has to keep in mind that there's going to be land follow-up here. You're still playing against the Mongols. Right now, he's investing into a significant amount of archers, but Anotand already has his eyes on the Keshiks. So, Keshik's just going to make this a little bit harder for him to constantly just be out on the resources, especially because that wood line is already a little bit opened up for anyone who dares to come inside and raid. But one of the healer elephants have been queued up, and all of a sudden, this is not going to be as scary anymore. Two Keshiks, they can charge in, but that healer elephant should be able to do quite a bit of work here. Demo ship gets a beautiful connection, and Puppypaw's law has just expired on that little pond.
That's a big recovery there for Anotand on that right pond, but it is an absolute necessity at this stage as Puppypaw finds the villagers force building the dock on this left-hand pond, but Anotand pays a price for it. Loses one of the villagers and significant idle time on these villages as well. The most important detail though, what really is crippling right now for Anotand is he has secured that right dock, but this is a classic situation you never want to find yourself in on Kawasan, where you're fighting tooth and nail for one of these ponds to finally have access to fishing, which now Anotand has started. But this entire time, Puppypaw has been fishing uncontested on that left pond, which even now Anotand has attempted to contest. Researching his own arrow slits here. I'm doubtful, well, as I say that, I was going to say I'm doubtful that we'll see any fishing ship commitment here, or fighting ship for that matter, but a demo is coming out. Probably just to delay this dock's downfall for the short while. He's going to be able to pick off that springboard ship if he's not careful. Puppypaw, bring the fishing ships. He's going to try to... Yo, the body block on the fishing ship. Very clutch when he needs it most. But is it enough though? Yes. The springboard hit as well as the fishing ships finish it off just in time.
And this is absolute beautiful play here by Puppypaw. He knows how important it is to keep this lake under control. With that healer elephant, feeling a little bit more confident to move out here and stomp on it, making sure that that siege damage does the work. Now, this is a pretty good investment here from Anotand. Getting that dock down, you already have the stone, so you've forced your opponent to spend a significant amount of time here, which gives you that little bit of breathing room to decide what is next for you. Anotand says that's going to be getting another demo ship here just to cause a little bit more havoc. But now the spears are being built again, and you have to ask yourself, is this a little bit risky with all the archers that Puppypaw has made already?
In theory, Anotand's archers should be better because of the Khan's Hunter. The extra range is not to be underestimated, but the issue we're faced with here is Puppypaw already has such a large count on the field already. The healing from the healer elephants is significant as well to cancel out some of that range advantage that Anotand will have. And there's just a big delay in general on the investment into land military now from Anotand because of the position of him being so behind from the get-go. Naturally, we have the little hiccup on the age up, but as we mentioned, the delay on the fishing is significant here as well. Significant move out onto the gold as well as Keshik production resumes. Upgrades will soon be on the menu most likely too. Puppypaw already having his wheelbarrow, Anotand has his broadaxe, but most significantly, Puppypaw has all of his significant blacksmith upgrades, range damage and armor, and is now poised to move directly towards Anotand's base.
Now, the military count can be a little bit deceiving as we take a quick look at it. We see that Taklak looking like he's got 27, but those fishing ships also count as a bit of military here. So the army value is a little bit skewed here, and you can see Anotand, he's feeling still confident enough to move out and do the raiding damage, which is exactly what he needs now. The Red Army, though, you just cannot underestimate this. We do see him getting +1 ranged armor now. He knows how important this is going to be, and that wood line is a little bit under siege. Usually Mongols is the one who does the work on the wood line, but this time you can see Taklak is very confidently doing so, but losing quite a few archers here under the TC. And every single unit he bleeds here is going to make this more and more dangerous, because those spears, there's only a handful of them, and the Keshik numbers are steadily increasing.
Right, coming up now as the archers and the spears connect together to keep themselves safe from the incoming massive Anotand. Keshiks take a charge but take a beating for it in turn, and the healer elephant leads the fight here at the beginning, body blocking, dealing damage all throughout this fight while healing behind this as well. The archers topping off the health bar the elephant is, as the trade out is just not worth it here for Anotand at all. He kills the spears but loses his own Keshiks in turn for it, and now is at a disadvantage when it comes to the archer mass. So Space Scout looking for a flank there, but in such a low count for Anotand, they're not going to make much of an impact here.
You can see he's focused on just getting those spears because he knows how important these Keshiks are going to be to the fight. Those Keshiks against the archers are going to perform pretty well now that they've got their +1 range armor, and here the connection comes. Now the archers are going to be in a little bit of duress. We see the healing coming through, but that healing is not enough. Spears are not in a spot to actually contest this, and there's just not enough of them here.
Well, the second healer elephant especially is not enough here for Anotand, as well as the first raider elephant hitting the field, which people still have mixed opinions about the strength of this unit, but make no mistake, it is tanky, it can be healed, and it does AoE damage with the Stampede. What can you really complain about if you have this unit available? As look at it, alongside the healer elephants, it's challenging the Keshiks pretty much directly here, but the archer mass is looking very healthy again for Anotand, so he's able to actually pick off one of the healer elephants. That's a big loss but for Puppypaw, but he does pick up the Khan in turn. Anotand doing his best to hold him, doing a great job of it, but the pressure is mounting at a rapid pace. Reinforcements now arriving from Puppypaw as well.
Oh, and this is right under the wood line here, so villagers are going to eventually be in danger as well, but these elephants are taking so much damage before going down. The second healer elephant finally going to be biting the dust, but you can see those little raiders are doing the work. Keshik numbers are non-existent, but you can see he just doesn't care. He's going straight for the archers. Anotand knows he needs to shut down this archer mass to really make this work. Now with one Keshik, he's trying to push this back, and it looks like the elephant will be backing off with this archer mass. And behind this, Puppypaw has got to ask himself, how do I keep this pressure up? With that, he's getting more healer elephants because he knows this is how he keeps his army alive, and with the right numbers, even TC fire is not going to hit hard enough.
Raider elephants now, a pair of them even, meeting this first Keshik as Anotand makes another stand on his wood line, which is getting thinner and thinner by the minute, and as it gets thinner, it becomes more exposed as well. Keshik falls, and the Raider elephant that he was fighting gets away just in time, but the second one dies instead. Another double-produced batch of Keshiks come in to again give Anotand the edge in this fight. Raider elephant meets to frontline for the archers, but it dies very swiftly, and a third Keshik joins at this point. There's very little space here for Puppypaw, only one now finally joins the front line here, and only one healer elephant as well. This can be very scary for Puppypaw if he's not careful. He marches forward with the healer elephant to go directly onto the archers, but the damage is so minimal. It's mainly the healing you're looking for here. The archers struggling to decide whether to focus between the Keshiks or the archers. They finally decide on the Keshiks, but they're not dying fast enough, and in turn, now Anotand has a commanding lead in the archer mass, but still, the Keshiks have fallen, and the healer elephant is still alive and kicking as another raider elephant joins the fray.
And now, the problem for Anotand is he's not been able to move out of his base for any of those outside food sources because the pressure has been on him. Puppypaw at 1,300 food per minute while Anotand's stuck on 600. So Puppypaw might be losing a little bit more, but he's getting more resources to do this with. That's the beauty of the Taklak dynasty. They do have a little nice way of moving around the map with those elephants so easily. But you have to ask yourself, and I can see where the problem is here. Anotand is also already started to overfish, so this eco is not going to be balanced for long. He's going to need to think about, where do I get more food? There's a deer pack very close to his base. so he should be able to get there now that the pressure is off that wood line. But this army from Puppypaw is still looking scary. He's doubling down on the archers and now going for the House of Learning. Now, guys, this is a Taklak Dynasty House of Learning, not a Delhi. So he's not going to wait for 2-3 minutes to get his upgrades to really come on through. He's ready with them within 5 seconds. And that Castle Age timing can be devastating. But Anotand, it seems like he's also banking quite a bit of resources here.
I can tell you from experience that seeing that age up notification for your opponent in this situation is one of the worst things you can possibly see happen. Worse than getting hit by a brutal raid, because you know that you are now in one of the most dire circumstances you possibly can be, as the House of Learning is almost finished, whilst at the same time Puppypaw has the military advantage as well on top of this. 4 healer elephants, 4 raider elephants, a big archer mass which is getting upgraded instantaneously, as well as the raider elephants which will soak up so much arrow fire. Anotand is in dire straits right now, and all of this is courtesy of the Tukulak strength on these hybrid maps. Fantastic economy with those fishing ships and elephant economics, and on top of that, a very scary army as well.
Oh, and Anotand can feel that pressure coming out directly towards them, and Puppypaw getting that 5-second +2 range defense as well. This is going to be a tough one for Anotand just to pick off a single unit. You can see those villagers are in shambles there at the back. Archers can still pick off other archers, but for how long? Those raider elephants just don't want to die. Puppypaw still with a healthy food income too. Anotand, he's trying to bank more and more resources, thinking about castle himself, but is this going to be safe enough? The archer pick-off is pretty well done from Anotand, though. He's doing an amazing job at doing that, but +2 is definitely starting to show with these elephants getting right on top. But the archer mass, they're perfectly cooked here.
Yes, trading the archers out for archers is the best thing Anotand can hope for in this case, because the real problem, those elephants, they would just not die at all. At this point, the raider elephants can handle the Keshiks without any real issues due to their veterancy. You can see these healer elephants, they're just not dying no matter how many arrows are coming at this point. I do wonder if Puppypaw has the increased healing upgrade at this rate. We can check in the Dome of Faith quickly. I don't think so, but he may perhaps do. Because the damage is just not there. He does not have it, no. It's the level 2 undermesh. Now he has level 2 ranged attack as well, though the archer numbers are minimal. It's just so much. These elephants will cause permanent idle time. They're not dying.
And the reinforcements are going to follow pretty shortly. We do see them pouring into the base. And Anotand desperately clicked up a bunch of Keshiks. He just needs to get the mass for himself, but he realizes this is enough, and he's not going to be able to take down this elephant mass inside his base. And now we see why Taklak gets banned every single time.
Indeed. A clinic displayed here by Puppypaw, showing exactly the strength of this civilization. Such a fantastic economy, early safety with those fishing ships that shoot arrows as well, and it's all manifested in these graphs right here. You see, as we mentioned, having access to an early pond on lockdown so early is an insurmountable nearly advantage on Kawasan. The economic count for Puppypaw skyrocketed very early. It took so long for Anotand to catch up, and even when he does catch up, his economy is weaker by default anyway. So it's kind of, you're fighting a losing battle from the very beginning unless you're able to get a significant lead, which Anotand has done a great effort in attempting. This villager pick at the beginning was so good, as well as the delay on the gold, but unfortunately that hiccup on the age up cost him so dearly, and on top of that it's difficult even in an even position against the Tukulak. Fantastic effort nonetheless, but it's a very difficult hill to overcome.
Now, 2 civilizations that slipped through. We can see this on our upcoming match. We see Japan and Ottomans made it through to the draft for Puppypaw. So, Puppypaw getting Ottomans, and I think this is one of the first time we actually get to see Ottomans being played, because everyone keeps sniping it out. People are constantly saying, Ottomans is too strong, we're not going to want to face this. So, with the Ottomans now going to be on Socotra, I must say, I'm really excited to see what this would actually mean. The thing is, Socotra is not a usual one-on-one map. Ottomans is not going to show that same type of power on Socotra as they would on a different map, most likely. And they can't go for the ball, so no sneaky ball plays. At the same time, we saw French on this map yesterday, and French looked okay. Not as you would expect the usual French to be, but they do still find those openings depending on how open that gold spawns at the back.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. A lot of these more quirky maps like Socotra, we had Mountain Clearing in the past, Front Range now as well. The design of the map often leaves very clear indication as to what civs are theoretically good there. But at the end of the day, counters are very important, right? And matchups are very important, even on maps where some civs might not feel most comfortable. We saw it yesterday, right, with French up against Macedonians. Socotra, not typically a great map for the French, whereas it can be, well, I mean, Macedonians is good everywhere, let's be honest, except for water, but these things can really muddy how effective a civ is in what matchup and on what map, and can lead to some very intriguing matchups, as we see right here in front of us, with Puppypaw shockingly allowed to play Ottomans in the color red, against Anotand's French in the color yellow, and yeah, Puppypaw is not risking anything. If there's a possibility of a boar, he's going to look to prevent it, and very smartly doesn't fully complete the barracks here. Well, as I said that, he completes it. But initially the idea there is, well, if he doesn't go on board, then I don't really need this barracks yet, and that wood may come in handy, but looks like he just commits to it anyway.
So with him not spotting that mill on the berries, he's just not going to have that information, plays it safe, pushes out. Now, what we saw a little bit on Socotra yesterday is that the spawn isn't always even. If we look at the gold spawns, here we can see that the gold is definitely going to be covered by the TC. And on the other side, you see that is a pretty nice spot. But this one, you do get to run around it quite a bit without being hit. So for Puppypaw, this means that French will probably find a good opening to raid if he's not careful with those spears. But he only makes one spear for now, and it doesn't look like he's got any more on wood to keep producing. That one spear, it has a job to do here. It has a job to go and scout, see what your opponent's doing, but the job will not include being able to find any damage today. So with this, he can push some deer, at least try, because this nerf hit those deer pushes so hard. But at least there is that little bit of a presence. And when you're up against the French, you know knights are coming, so that spear will be useful eventually.
Does make you wonder why Puppypaw did not opt for the military school opening instead here. I mean, of course, the risk of the boar or the deer is always there, and you want to have the adequate number of space to deal with that. But it's very easy for Ottomans to pivot into barracks after the military schools if they so choose it. And this could have potentially yielded Puppypaw a slightly more economic age up in that regard, already having one of the military schools active with space being produced from it. But, as we mentioned, wants to make sure there is no room here for Anotand to breathe at all in terms of food, which is going to be the significant factor in this matchup. Historically, this matchup is a bit scary in the early parts of the Feudal Age for the Ottomans, and then it gets progressively easier and easier as they have this school set up, as they begin pumping Sipahi as well as spears to counter the French's knights and archers. It becomes so difficult for the French from a unit control perspective, because not only does your micro have to be on point against the full melee composition, but on top of it, you know, the Mechter alongside the Sipahi and Spearmen makes them such a fearful composition, which on a map like this, with less room for archers to kite and easier choke points for the spears and Sipahi to fall into with the knights and archers, it can be even scarier than normal, which is why this matchup can be a recipe for fireworks.
Now, Puppypaw is already addressing one of those major issues that Ottomans or any civilization on this map will have, and that is being able to have the food. The Twin Minaret Madris is just going to allow him to out-sustain that French aggression that we might see here from Anotand, because of course, French, they need so much to keep that knight spam going. And with this map, you need to get control of it pretty quickly. Now, usually with a knight civilization, that is quite easy to do, but Ottomans is not one of the easiest opponents to do that against. But like you said, that is usually with the military schools. This one barracks, it's going to be able to produce spears, but we've seen a lot of players opt for not going for any of those military schools early on. They're saying, hey, let's just invest in making units directly. And I can't wait to see if Puppypaw does exactly that. But the first knight is in queue, and Anotand, with that wheelbarrow, the villagers are not running too slowly around. They're having a pretty great time here. And it looks like he's just going to keep pumping out some knights to ensure that those spearmen need to be produced non-stop.
Socotra, a map often determined by that central boar, and I imagine in this matchup especially, it'll be no different today. All the fighting will revolve around that plentiful food bounty in the form of that boar, and Anotand looks to claim it as soon as he possibly can, and looks to be in a great position to do so. Only 2 spears on the field for Puppypaw. Sure, they'll beat the knight, but alongside the villagers here is not the case. Looks like Scout will be sacrificed, however, to make this possible. And Puppypaw has to be so careful here. He does manage to get good hits on the knight, but already one of the spears is trapped by the villager and will fall instantly. So the imams later on, they will not heal it, but he might exchange a villager for it as well, as a scout and the wolf are against Anotand in this position. Overall, that's a very interesting trade. I'd say it's worth it for Anotand. Even losing the villager, the boar is secured.
Getting the boar is just going to ensure that Anotand has the ability to keep pumping those knights. But we do see Sipahis as our next follow-up. That now from a military school. So Puppypaw, he does believe in free units and isn't just going to pump everything out from real production buildings. He wants to make sure that there's a constant trickle of these units. Sipahis, they do make life a lot more difficult, and they do deal with knights okay when the numbers are low, especially when mixed in with a handful of these spears. But that tower being built, that is just a little bit of idle time that also comes on out. It secures the boar, sure, but let's see how Puppypaw actually punishes this. Because the number of spears, they are getting quite scary, and that first Sipahi is being manually made as well. Archer follow-up now coming out from Anotand, and he's going to need a lot of them to handle those spears. But at the same time, the Sipahis will have something to say about that.
And with the imams down the field as well, Puppypaw can start looking for very aggressive trades as long as he does not sacrifice any of his units further from now on out, without it being absolutely necessary, of course. French's discount on the economic upgrades coming in very handy here for Anotand, because he already has his wheelbarrow and his double broadaxe, now getting his specialized pick as well. Survival techniques undoubtedly in by this point too, due to him having secured that ball. There's that Puppypaw. Even before Undermesh, he's going to look to at least cause a bit of idle time here. Prudent choice indeed. He shouldn't be in any real danger with his imams if he doesn't extend too far. Although, the focus fire from the archer as well as the outpost does cost one of the spears their lives. And I don't think Puppypaw quite has the burn power to commit to this yet. 2 spears down already. The knight has to be really careful. Sipahi didn't head around to kill it. Instead pinches the scout instead. And it's a stalemate yet again. But the scout for 2 spears there, I'm not sure it's worth it, the idle time. Every military unit counts at this point, and Puppypaw has the lead for now, being the Ottomans, but 3 knights on the field already, the archers now mounting too. It's gonna get trickier and trickier with that boar.
It is definitely going to be tricky to keep gathering from it. That idle time feels like it did the damage Puppypaw wanted it to do. 2 spears being sacrificed, and again, taking down that second scout from Anotand. Anotand has manually remade this thing, and Puppypaw just says, you will not have vision on this. Now, the tower luckily provides the scouting needed for that middle ground, but the tower is now getting reinforced, and now things are going to become harder and harder. The problem is just the archer numbers are not there yet to pick these off quick enough, but the Sipahis, they need to be careful. Because these knights just want to charge them. But you see those trades with the knights are already... They're getting a little bit low. And a Sipahi turn could be very fruitful here for Puppypaw. He just needs to be careful with this handful of archers. But now the tower is going to be something that reminds us a little bit of these games from yesterday. So for all of you who watched that Tower of Wham, that thing stayed alive for so long. And it feels like Puppypaw is now faced against that same type of tower that is guarding this middle of the map, just to ensure that that ball keeps on producing. Another scout being made by Anotand too. The man respects the need for vision.
Yeah, as information, there's nothing more important in Age of Empires 4 than information. Knowing what your opponent is doing, what they're building, what they're producing, and where they're going with their economy. This is all what you need to know to give yourself the best chances of winning, especially on a map like this. Notice the Baki raid goes on the gold, but is discovered straight away as the villagers are pulled back. And that fortification in the center on the boar outpost is absolutely crucial there for Anotand. The perfect timing as well, using the knights to delay the torch just enough for it to come through, because that timing with the Mechter, Undermesh and Imams was very scary indeed, and that's not a fight Anotand could ever win directly there. So the fortification makes it possible, and he will extend that boar. But look at this, Mareka. Behind this Puppypaw finds the gold to go Castle Age as well.
And going Castle Age for the Ottomans is usually a little bit of a vulnerability point for them against civilizations like the French. I say with that beautiful connection, one of the spears going down, he wants to thin out these numbers as much as possible, but he has to be careful. Losing one of these could be tragic. Now, Puppypaw, back to the man going castle. This feels good for Ottoman. You go castle, you get that extra military school, you start getting some siege as well, which is going to make that middle presence a little bit easier over time. But French usually has the ability to actually do some real damage, and we can see something sneaky there in the queue for Anotand. He's actually looking to deny a little bit of gold there from his opponent, getting himself a galley. Now that galley is going to sit right on top of the gold of Puppypaw, and the way the map has spawned just now, there's no safe gold. Oh, except for the one the knight just ran by, but that's it. No more safe gold, so once he's pushed off there, he's going to need to be very careful of these waters. Supplies, though, ooh, they need to be a little bit more slippery for these guys, because if the knights start picking them off, things get very, very hairy for him.
Galley's a very intelligent play here by Anotand, and a staple of this map, as we've seen a bunch of times by now. The gold always unsafe from the seas to any kind of military ship, and Anotand's going to look to employ that fully, although Puppypaw has committed to the age up, but that means that Anotand, who has been fully committing to units, now has the military advantage, which is crucial in this position, because although most of the day are taken, the villagers are now forced to run back and idle, and a couple of spears falling here. Imam might lose his life as well if Puppypaw is not careful. They are running for their lives. The age up is going to finish just in the nick of time, only losing a couple of villagers to make that 2-3 now at this point. Could have been way worse there for Puppypaw. The timing was almost perfect. And Anotand looks to dive.
The issue is now, that is a pretty tough dive to get into if you are up against a bunch of spears. And Anotand respects this. He's making more knights, though, and getting that chivalry in finally. But the tower on the gold is doing the work he needs it to do. Puppypaw, seeing that this could be a threat, putting that tower down, makes it a little bit easier. You can see those villagers trying to get a little bit more gold, and all they are going to need to do is be able to put another mining camp right next to the tower. Then their lives should be safe, but that bit of idle time is giving Anotand a little bit more breathing room to move out onto the map. He knows he's got the pressure, he's got the numbers, he gets to dictate the food on the rest of the map. Imams, though, them staying alive, that's pretty massive here.
It's true. Any damage that Puppypaw has taken can be completely healed with those Imams. And Anotand throwing up some prudent wards there on the left side, securing one of the angles of entry into his base. But the right side is still open, and Puppypaw is looking to take full advantage of that. There's plenty of vision here for Anotand to see, but is he paying attention is the question, and he is not. 42 gets activated. It's going to be an absolute massacre here on the gold line. Already 3 have fallen, make that 4. 5 at this stage. The Sipahi range as well as the attack speed is absolutely not to be underestimated.
It gets a bit of idle time there too. In the meantime, the knights have managed to pick off one of those imams. So the second one, standing a little bit far forward, those knights know exactly what they want to kill. And with these numbers, they should be able to dive to get the imam. One of the knights does become a kebab. Oh, never mind. Oh, never mind. He's dead. He's dead. I called it and uncalled it and cursed that poor knight to his own death. But he is being a little bit careful here around that TC. That TC, it did give me hints of crossbow fire. Can we take a quick look at the... Oh, we can't with this overlay with the vizier points, but it did. Yes, there we go. That TC is doing some good work. We do see field work that came out. And, of course, just ensuring that that base is a little bit safer.
Yeah, you've read my mind there. Pivotal pickup there by Puppypaw. To extend his lifeline in his base makes it way harder for Anotand to dive. Although, if he's on the outskirts of his base, then there's no real need to dive, as plenty of units kind of getting thrown away here by Puppypaw. The Mechter dies, plenty of spears die as well. And all the villagers on the berries are exposed, some losing their lives in turn. Although the knights now from Puppypaw are hitting the field, and Of course, Anotand has the knight advantage, but these knights from Puppypaw are indeed way stronger being Castle Age at this point, and Anotand's still fully investing at this stage, not really able to age up. It's very dangerous to do so in this case because, well, you just don't have the economy for it, and if you stall military production, then suddenly Puppypaw may exceed the knight count, which is when the game becomes very difficult indeed. So for now, Anotand will keep prowling like a shark. Discovers the woodline again as an outpost is attempted to be built, but Puppypaw quick on the reactions. Although without the imams now, all these knights that take damage can no longer be healed by Puppy, which is a very significant detail, as Anotand's knights can always still heal with that chivalry.
Ooh, but 2 knights pay the price. That TC is going through them like they're made of paper. 2 villagers did fall there under the towers. We can see with Puppypaw now having to move out for a bit of food as well. The Lancers, though, they face the knights, and the knights of the French, they're still just good enough to face off against these. He's got to be careful under the TC, but Anotand, he's feeling pretty confident about where he is right now. The thing about playing against French, you just need to be able to handle knights diving your base. The base is doing a really good job at deterring them, but at the same time, with those numbers, he's just going to keep putting up that pressure, and Puppypaw is nowhere near finding an answer to that food situation he's got going on, while Anotand still has quite a bit of food on the rest of the map that he gets to snack on.
Yes, the Twin Mirror Madras is only able to do so much for Puppypaw here. It's a fantastic landmark for food, but at this point in time, you can only do so much when you want to actively produce knights in the Castle Age. Anotand has now the space he needs. The walls are up, the damage has been dealt, and the food is secured, which means Guild Hall now halfway to completion. And a big wraparound from the knights here by Anotand. Very good move there to try to trap Puppypaw's cavalry up against the wall. It is noticed in time, though only one of them goes down.
Now, with all of these horses just running around trying to find some damage, you know, Puppypaw wants to keep the Knights of Anotand busy. He realizes the longer the game goes, the better it may be for him just to get that economy going. But you see the very opportunistic villagers all the way out there trying to get a bit of gold, but it does get shut down by a little boat now from the Puppypaw, ensuring that Anotand's not the only one controlling land from water. Now, 2 mangonels. That feels pretty good to have.
Indeed it does. That's going to be what Puppypaw needs to deal with this backline from Anotand. It'll even discount crossbows, arbaletrie, if Anotand decides to go into them. Third one is on its way by now as well. And a big trap though by Anotand. Fantastic move yet again. More knights are being bled by Puppypaw, and again, look at those health bars. These knights cannot heal unless Puppypaw invests into imams yet again, which at this point he doesn't really have the economy to do. Still behind in the economic upgrades he is, and Anotand, they're living a clinic here as the French against the Ottomans.
And this is where the French really shines. We've now had a position where he's just constantly getting a few extra villagers. It's starting to tick. Ottoman keeps up with this by having those military schools. We'll see if that's going to be enough, because right now the Janissaries are out, so they deal pretty well with knights, but in bigger numbers. Right now you see these knights feeling very, very happy about just going to fight a bunch of villagers, and they will get some victims falling like flies. 3 villagers down, just like that. And Anotand is attacking in more than one position as well. The mangonels, though, they are ready to defend, but they are in a risky position out there too.
Yes, it has been clicked. The Vizier point has been clicked. The Janissaries are on the field, and this is what Puppypaw might need for potentially a game-ending push that he, with the disadvantage that he finds himself under, will likely want to go for. Being significantly behind in economy by this point, and the guild hall, as we know, is now ticking. The food is accruing faster and faster. Most likely food, I say, at least. That's typically the option to go for. Springboard ship here by Anotand, Hulk I should say, finds damage on the berries, picks off the villagers. Puppypaw does not react there, focused on other matters entirely instead. But with these mangonels, Janissaries, it's definitely a very strong army for Puppypaw, but the mass is the concern here, isn't it? So much more on the field here for Anotand, so many more archers and knights, and they are now veterans as well in this Castle Age, whereas having most of his maps secured, Anotand has as well. It's a great position to be in, although playing it safe against Ottomans is always a very scary thing to do.
Now, Puppypaw is investing a little bit more onto the water, trying to get a bit of control from there. He knows that the golds are so close to the shorelines, so he's trying to make sure that the water is in his hands, and he will be able to take down quite a few of these ships. We do see this poor Spriggle ship getting chased down, and finally, for the first time in history, an arrow ship beats a Spriggle ship. And now we'll be moving towards that goal to try and shut down Anotand, because Anotand's damage has been insane. He's picked up so many villagers from the sides, but you can see Puppypaw here. He's about to find a big group of villagers right above him there on the berries.
You're exactly right. So many of the villagers are there, and this could be a very big discovery. Although, Anotand's knights are circling around the back. It does notice, okay, the galley does get a few shots off there, but not quite enough to get any kill. You know, Anotand was looking for the wraparound with the knights, but has to be very careful not to get trapped in here. Those Janissaries will absolutely melt through them like butter if they get the good connections. Puppypaw again with another galley discovering the gold here for Anotand, and this is significant idle time at this stage, the gold. There's not much of it in the bank for Anotand, actually investing now into Gallias as well, just to fully secure those waters.
And this tower feels like it's paid off so much already. Just hitting the units from over that wall as well while they're trying to burn it down. Do you see Anotand? He got the idle time, right? His villagers have been running around, but at the same time, there's fallback. He's going to the wood. He's feeling pretty confident about this, especially with those knight numbers. Now, Puppypaw's base feels quite secure at this point. The problem is just he's going to need to move out. We can see the gold per minute showing us a very clear story of both of these people just struggling for resources. And the water now is mostly controlled here by Puppypaw. Now, Anotand, though, he's invested in, I would say, what is that ship, Myriad?
That is a galleass. French, alongside Ottomans, I believe, are the only two civilizations in the game, well, JD as well, I guess, with access to a cannon ship in the Castle Age. Now, it's not quite a Carrack or a Bouchard, it's not as strong, but it's still very strong. It's just a stronger springboard ship with pretty effective use against buildings as well. So that's going to tear through any ship Puppypaw can make. Of course, demos will deal with it very effectively if Puppypaw does look to invest into one. But it looks like he'd rather invest into just killing Anotand instead. Easier said than done, considering the Massey as the Mangonels fire off immediately, 4 of them on the field, boosted by the attack speed of the mech there. We can see just how Anotand's mass swallows up Puppypaw whole here. The archers are melting through the Janissaries. There's just not enough meat on the field here. Anotand breaking through, getting on top of the Mangonel so they can't even shoot, and the damage has been done. Puppypaw cannot keep up with the amount of units. GG is cold, and neck in neck these two find themselves.
And just like that, one of the strongest civilizations in the game is now deleted for Puppypaw. The man got Ottomans through, but Anotand had a plan for it, and his French looked solid. Beautiful play here by Anotand. We can see that economy count just always being a little bit ahead. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind the military schools, but those raids, every single dip we see was a knight that found a victim. So let's go see what that next draft looks like to see if Puppypaw can get that game 3 on his side, and it's going to be on Frisian marshes. Now, Myriad, I love a good Frisian marshes, but when I look at these picks, I'm feeling very positive for Anotand. Aeobits has been looking so good on Frisian. And Sengoku, they don't get as much airtime, but we'll see what Puppypaw believes they can do out here.
It could be a very exciting matchup indeed. As you mentioned, Aeobid, kind of a classic pick on Frisian by now. With so many little ponds full of fish, that half-price discount on the docks becomes extra fruitful here when you're justified to make so many of them. And that can be a massive advantage for a civilization like the Aeobids, of course. Sengoku, however, not to be underestimated either. They have 0 bonuses for fishing. However, they do indeed have the Yatai, which do count shoreline fish as well, very fruitfully indeed. So getting a lot of food on them is not difficult by any means, and they will absolutely tear through the Aeobids in a feudal on feudal fight, which is quite often what Frisian does devolve into, doesn't it? Challenging that fishing back and forth. And when it comes to cavalry in the feudal age, not many outdo the Sengoku daimyo, that's for sure. But it's not always just about feudal, right? When it comes to that castle age, things can open up a lot. fantastic knights Sengoku has access to, but Iobit as well, with the Camel Lancers, can always find fantastic damage.
Now, that's one thing that I had a discussion about on stream yesterday as well. When I asked Beastie about the matchup and how do you even deal with Aeobits, he was like, Yari. I'm like, okay, but what if they make Yari? Like, what about Yari? And apparently, you just make more Yari and you'll be good. Now, that's the interesting part about this. With Sengoku, they just have a little bit of more food with those yatais. So Yari will definitely be a pretty good answer to what is out here. But you also have to consider that with the archers that you can just mass because they are so much cheaper, it feels like Aeobits is going to need to find a good way to do devastating damage to a civ like Sengoku. At the same time, their docks are cheap. They get to dictate a little bit of that pace of how much do I invest on water, how much is there going to be on land. But before we get into just this game, I just want to take a quick look at what we have banned in front of us. Because as we get to the top 4, we see constantly different civilizations getting banned against other players. So Ottomans and Sengoku, pretty standard here. I think most people getting rid of Ottomans early on. Sengoku has been something that is a little bit back and forth, but Byzantines in that mix
like
as well. We fixed. Don't worry. Guys, Discord just died on us. No, it was still luckily on stream. Stream didn't miss me, but Discord, poor guy died. Quick. But we're back. What about Puppypaw's draft? How do you feel about his bans and priorities out here?
It's looking quite standard, right? It's getting to the point now, at the beginning of the qualifiers for Road to Red Bull Wololo, everything was still up in arms. No one was quite sure how strong civs are, how they match up with the new ones. In the map pool as well, it's always very difficult in such a short turnaround time. But now we're starting to see some patterns arise here, right? Of course, Japanese by now a staple, and Malians, Chinese banned out. Anotand has lost Ottomans and Sengoku in turn. And then we see the classics, right? Tughlaq for the hybrid. Lancaster is always really solid. Delhi and Jushi. Jushi very flexible. Can do well on land and on hybrid. Usually on hybrid nowadays, though. And of course, Anotand. Macedonians is just looking better and better every time we see them in action, it feels like. Iobids naturally. Golden Horde. People sleep on Golden Horde. I'm telling you, this civilization is actually kind of insane.
Now, Golden Horde has found a lot of homes. We've seen it on Hill and Dale. We've seen it on Bodland as well. So I'm excited to see where Anotand might pull this one out. But we can see he's really excited to show us what Macedonians can do. And with the maps that we see it being sniped on, he's still got two very viable choices. They don't do too bad on Dry Arabia. They don't do bad on Bodland. So he's got a pretty strong civilization in his pocket every single time. And alongside it, one of the civs that is also prioritized as ban very often is Malians. So it's gonna get to a point where Puppypaw's like, which one of these evils do I need to face instead? Puppypaw, on the other hand, he's got Japan. Japan, it has shown us time and time again that it can adapt to anything. But guys, it looks like it's time for us to go see what Aeobids and Sengoku can do on Frisian marshes. Let's go see what this hybrid map is going to offer us.
Neck and neck these two find themselves, and that tie will be broken here on Frisian marshes as Puppypaw, with the Sengoku daimyo spawning in the north side of the map, facing Anotand in the color yellow, as the Aeobids, opting for a dock opener here as well as a mill, so full greed here for Anotand. Puppypaw on the other hand, of course, with the Matsuri towards the wood line. Yatai very soon to come out as well, and you might be wondering, well, why not go for docks instead of Yatai? The Yatai are just very much more cost efficient at this rate than fishing ships, way easier to get out. I believe Sengoku Daimyo does still have the fishing ship discount that Japanese have, but it's kind of small for a map like this, right? It's gonna add up, but your main investment is docks as opposed to fishing ships, really, having to build so many of them, which you don't really save many costs there. I think most people would rather take Aeobid's discount over Sengoku's on this kind of a map any day of the week, so that is definitely an advantage. But Aeobid does not have the Yatai, and as we mentioned, when it comes to having to use mobility to your advantage, which definitely is the case often on this map, Sengoku does it exceptionally well with some of the fastest horsemen in the game, and some of the best horsemen in the game on top of it, makes it so difficult for the Ayyubids to do anything other than try to fast castle, but that is often how you open yourself up to pressure, and with pretty vulnerable gold spawns, Anotand might be in a tricky situation because of that.
Yes, getting control of one gold will very easily mean getting control of the other. So Anotand definitely needs to keep this game in his hands. Now, with the Sengoku bonuses, we have to talk about those yatais, not just because they are going to provide the food, of course, they work out a little bit more cost efficient, but what this means for the long-term investment. So with these yatai being out here and not getting contested early on, because of course Ayyubids is now working their way onto the water, they're trying to get that fish bonus as much as they can, that's going to mean that the yatai get to tick for longer without getting contested, which just means you get that bonus on your Matsuri so much quicker without being contested. And I think this is also why it's such an important thing for Sengoku to focus on, to ensure that your yatai come out instead of you just going out and going for fishing. So you do open yourself up to having a little bit of access to the ponds later on too. But Anotand, he's going to need to find a way to shut those down, because once the bonus kicks in, things get very difficult for any matchup that needs to play against them.
Oh, those central boars as well. Important detail is the yatai pacifies the boar around it, so that boar, even one villager can take it in theory. It will take him a day to cut down that boar, but he will get it done eventually. So gaining control of the center here for Sengoku can be vital towards their efforts to win a game. That Puppypaw is actually going to go even greedier than we originally anticipated, likely committing to all three yatai here. And actually, speaking of villagers, looks like Puppypaw has something spicy planned, because a villager gets spotted mid-map by Anotand's scout. And where is he headed? He could look to try to counter-dock, but I mean, I was going to say Anotand just has to pull his villager to prevent it, but his own villager has taken a bit of a slapping from Puppypaw's scout, so that's not going to be an option. Is he just counter-docking? This is bizarre.
Now, we do see the spears are the ones coming to join this party too. Anotand joining that spear army. Both of them will be having a spear off early on, and he knows he needs to do this because gold is going to get under siege. Just like you said, with a double gold spawn on the same side, you get control of the one, you get control of the other. And Puppypaw, being a greedy goose here, going for a dock himself after getting triple yatai into a barracks and spears, he is hoping to get every bit of advantage he can. Those yatais might be done ticking before the next age has begun.
This Dark Age investment from two civilizations that virtually never played Dark Ages, I would not have predicted this, I can tell you that for sure. This is quite radical, but it makes sense really. I mean, I guess neither of them want to risk losing the tempo on the map, getting harassed on the fishing, so they're just gonna try to prevent it entirely. Anotand, though, finds the gold needed for the fast age up. Culturing advancement on the way is going to come in pretty quickly for him here, which is pretty pivotal in this spear fight, because once the hardened upgrade is in, his spears are just completely better, and he will be able to not only start pushing away these yatai, but also take Puppypaw off of gold. Although Puppypaw not far behind himself either, banking up quite a bit of gold. He might even look to buy some food with that gold if he wishes.
And with him being out here on the map, it already feels so good. Puppypaw has this economy set up. He's got the barracks ready, so he can pull back in that moment. But the spears from Anotand are going to be a little bit of a worry as they get to move out and try to shut down these yatai. And this is usually where things spiral out of control, when you get us around. But instead he gets us around with the spears, but it's 5 against 5, and these are Dark Age of each. We'll see the micro going down for Anotand, losing the first spear. Puppypaw instantly backing off. He does not want to risk more. He loses one, but these are getting low. Reinforcements are arriving. Not full HP though, so he does need to be careful. 20 seconds until that age up arrives.
Socotra Township now for Puppypaw on the way as well. Very, very good on this map indeed. You can see plenty of stealth forests to use to your advantage, both on the flanks towards the ponds, but also directly in the center, where often a lot of the action happens later in the game on this map. Scout spots Puppypaw's villager yet again, who looks to build another dock. That would be Puppypaw's second dock at this point in time. But the age up is through now for Anotand, and he does have his upgrade on the way, but by the time he gets across the map, I'm not sure it's going to make too big of an impact for him, as Puppypaw is not far behind either, and he's going to be able to have the Shinobi to help on the defense if needed, which would definitely cancel out the hardened upgrade.
Oof, and we can see that Yatai getting that surround. That's exactly what I was talking about. People very often underestimate how easy it is to get that surround and to body block. Puppypaw does not want to take any risks. Will lose this Yatai, but some of the spears might be in a bit of danger as the Stealth Forest is right there and the Shinobis will be in position to spawn here. Yatai coming out with... Never mind. The man will go down. Shinobis spawn and the spears will be falling here pretty quickly with that debuff being thrown right on top of them. Now, these Dark Age Spearmen are putting up a pretty good fight, but the Shinobis are just too good.
So I'm a little surprised by Puppypaw there. I feel like he definitely could have looked to save that Yatai completely. It's such an expensive loss this early on. Sure, he might have taken some inadequate trades on the spears, but I feel like saving the Yatai for 1 or 2 spears should be worth it there. Could have maybe sped up the landmark a little bit as well for the Shinobi to get them through, but so many things to focus on at this stage. It's hard to always do the right thing in all the right circumstances. Anotand, though, with the archers already on the field, and plenty of them indeed, looking to go across the map yet again to challenge Puppypaw. But it's a scary position because if Puppypaw does go into those Yari, then these archers are prone to being picked off, which is going to be on the menu, as well as by now a second archery range for Puppypaw. And the Yuumi, well, the Yuumi are arguably the best archers in the Feudal Age.
Now, at the start, they're not as great without that damage buff, especially with the numbers are so much lower. Anotand has invested quite a bit, but they will very quickly pick up. With 2 archery ranges, it is not going to be a difficult transition for him at all. Now, what I love to see here is Puppypaw understands how important keeping this fishing is going to be, because it's going to keep these units busy for as long as he needs to do this little bit of a Yari switch that is going to deal with the archers of Anotand. So he does get his fishing boat's protected by getting a galley out there, and Puppypaw, he is gonna need to be careful, because now you are the one with less units. Your opponent has completely invested, and Anotand is not stopping. Now getting horsemen as well. The man wants to be aggressive here. The Yuumis, though, are standing in position and ready to start sniping.
Anotand has to be so careful. He has the military lead, but stepping up with full infantry against cavalry is always very, very difficult, even if it's only... Well, to be fair, it's only 1 Yari, let's be honest. It's not that threatening yet, but a second Yari now joins the fray. Hello. And now the spears come to meet to defend the archers, but this is how you can prevent the Yuumi from getting out of hand. As you correctly mentioned, Mareka, they are very strong, but initially not so much. We don't even have Steeled Arrow in yet for Puppypaw. And of course, the Oda clan Daimyo is still very far away, including the upgrade for the +1 damage as well. Very expensive indeed. These are all luxuries right now for Puppypaw. Luxuries he is in no position to afford, as he now is forced heavily on the defensive. And anytime one of these Yuumis gets picked off favorably here for Anotand, gets worse and worse for Puppypaw. This is what he needs though, the Yari. Now looking to raid, and they're so effective at this, picking off reinforcements and raiding. The extra 2 damage against cavalry helps them immensely as well.
Now, I would like to take a look at that Matsuri just to see what the bonus is at currently, because that bad boy is... Yeah, just click him. Just click him. Let us see. 15%. That feels pretty good. These villagers are just working a bit harder to ensure that there is so many more units coming out of Puppypaw. The Puppypaw's numbers are starting to look scary. But you have to ask yourself, how much is Anotand going to invest before going to a castle himself and then getting some units that can handle this pretty well? He is floating a lot of food, trying to spend it on as many horses as possible. But at the same time, your production buildings limit you for how many you're going to pump out there. So the resources stacking up does beg the question, is he considering his options as well?
Well, it does look like Anotand is trending towards that castle slowly. The food is banked up, but as he gets charged on, there's a bit of a reinvestment now all of a sudden. Doesn't want to pull this trigger too early. It gets very scary against Sengoku with their superior food income. Even now, despite Anotand's advantage in docks, you can see the food income still in favor of Puppypaw here, who looks to punish this overextension potentially by Anotand, but with the horseman present from Anotand as well, it gets a bit trickier here on the micro for Puppypaw. He has to be so careful about this engagement. Those spears have to die. Shinobi should be called in quite soon as well, but it's a bit difficult because the stealth forests are quite far, although the one on the left could be very accessible here for Puppypaw. Another thing to evoke, so it makes it very difficult, but the Yari are on top of the archers now, and there's so many of them falling. There is a galley in production, but there's a question whether maybe a demo here would be better to trap right as these Yari come to the shore, but galley is still some ways out. By that point, all the archers will be dead.
This was such an expensive loss here for Anotand. Anotand losing every single archer he was poking with. And now Puppypaw is in that spot where you do not want to let Sengoku get to. He is just going to keep pumping horses, keep pumping these archers for the cheapest of prices. And like you said, they're great. Best archer in the game, but especially if there's nothing to snipe them out. And that's exactly what is happening here. Anotand now opts for that demo ship, but a little bit too late with the horses now getting on top and trying to torch this down.
Not the fight and engagement Anotand was looking for at that point. Slightly overextended against such a strong force of Yumi and Yari cavalry spells doom, and that's exactly what occurred there. He still has plenty of units in reserve still, but he's forced a little bit on the defensive. As I say that though, the horsemen are still marching around and has to be so careful to keep track of them because these losses are mounting up. This horseman got almost killed instantly upon running into those Yari, only a couple of hit points on it left. Now, Puppypaw looking to challenge the center of the map as well. Wheelbarrow coming in for Anotand now, and he has so many docks at this point that his food income is looking great, but Castle Age, which is where he really wants to go, is quite far away still, and getting there in a good position is easier said than done.
Anotand is trying to use these low HP horses to go down, especially because he hasn't spotted that first Daimo yet. The first Daimo has been built, as far as I know. Yeah, there we go, in queue. Right now, he's going to get his first one, ensuring that these horses, they are just going to be attacking a little bit harder. And soon enough, if he decides to go for the upgrade, they're going to be running away pretty quickly. Anotand is not going to be able to say anything against that. Puppypaw getting the +2 attack for them as well. This is going to make sure that these things feel extra slippery. But he's about to click up the castle. He's got the resources in the bank. He's got the bonus behind his base, and the sake brewery is placed down. This is going to be some really safe gold for the man.
And it's looking a bit... It's looking more and more dire for Anotand here, if we're being completely honest, right? The age up here for Puppypaw, I mean, being ahead in terms of the age up start, as most civs compared to Ayubid, is generally horrible position for Ayubid to be in, and it's definitely no different here because Sengoku, an absolute powerhouse in that castle age with access to the mounted samurai as well as plenty of bonuses like the sake brewery that we mentioned, so much great gold, and advancement has been used, so there's no fast age up here for Anotand. He has clicked his up now. It's going to be Mastersmiths here, interestingly enough. He might sense that he's behind in the timing and could need this to actually survive the initial push from Puppypaw. He got Yumi coming in as well, additional +1 damage on these Yumi when they are under the influence of a daimyo.
And with the archers that he's got, he's probably thinking to myself, I need +2 damage as quickly as I can get it because I'm about to get flooded with whatever he decides to bring. And Mastersmith is still a minute and a bit out, which means that Puppypaw is going to start making those mounted samurai with nothing from Anotand's side to actually answer to that. But that Daimo already getting its value. We see 3 total dead villagers. Now, keep in mind, some of those were fishing ships, but more are taking damage and falling. Another one almost paying the price here, but he does get it out. Now, the villagers from Puppypaw, we do see him now out on the map and slowly going to be needing to get out to get some food, but this goes for both of them. Especially with the docks now going to be the ones in danger. The daimyo is surrounded and the villagers try to fight back, but 8 villagers have fallen total. And you ask yourself, is there anything Anotand can do to get control of this again?
Very little, frankly, right? I mean, Ayubid, they're known for being such a strong, rapid, tempo-based civilization. They always like to be, and definitely normally are, one step ahead of their opponent, whether it's with an age up, a compositional switch, or just in the right place at the right time. Sadly for Anotand, none of those cases are true here for him. This is the difficulty, as we mentioned, in contesting that feudal age against a stronger feudal civilization like the Sengoku. It's so tough. It's so difficult to play from then on, and sure, you want to go castle age, but you're so vulnerable in the feudal age if you go so naked on this kind of a map. And, you know, if you don't get to castle age in an advantageous position, a civilization like Sengoku can quickly run away with the game. Only now Anotand finishes his age up, has 4 camo lances in queue, but there's already 9 mounted samurai on the field for Puppypaw. The numbers tell a very clear tale here, and Anotand is gonna have to make a miraculous defense here.
Now, he's got +2 on every single one of his units here, so those Yumis are not going to be hitting as hard as they'd want, but they need to wait for the veterancy on these archers. Puppypaw knows there's a timing here, and he's attacking into it. This is a little bit of a choke point here, and the archers are firing right through. Now with the veterancy kicking in, they're going to start hurting a lot more, and he does need to be careful, but the camel lances are in the mix. The mounted samurais, though, these things are hitting like trucks, and it just doesn't feel like Anotand's damage is going to be enough for these.
No, definitely not. As we mentioned, the Master Smith was more of a necessity than a choice there for Anotand, but it seems like even that might not be enough for him to survive in this position. Even the Shinobi come into the fray. Less damage dealt by all of Anotand's units is crippling in this position as the Mounted Samurai carve through the camels like butter and are soon to jump onto the backline of archers before this, and the villagers are next on the chopping block. This game is over for Anotand.
Now with these archers, he's doing a pretty good job at trying to clean these up, but every single one of those shinobis took away a whole shot of arrows that could have been used to take down Puppypaw's army. Now Puppypaw has lost a significant amount, but it does not matter. More and more are coming, and I don't care about the DC fire. He knows he's got this. Anotand taps out, and Puppypaw takes game number 3 in a pretty convincing fashion. It feels like Puppypaw knew exactly what the limitations are of Sengoku, when to attack or when to pull back, and he just got to that mass where it's pretty difficult to find an answer to. So Anotand, he took a loss against Sengoku, and that shouldn't feel too tough, but this is match point. This is his life in this week, so he needs to pull out all the stops to try and make this come back. But the next map is his choice, and we'll see what he decides to go for.
It's true, it is match point, and as you mentioned, losing to Sengoku isn't much of a shame. Frankly, the civilization is also just fantastic. It is even more potent than Japan on these land maps. Japan's main strength comes from its flexibility. It can even play water maps, and it's often less limited in certain matchups because of the safety of something like the Kura storehouse. But in these kind of situations, Sengoku does what Japan does even better. And that is where they can really shine, as showcased here by Puppypaw. And it's a tough one for Anotand from the get-go. I mean, Ayubid, a fantastic civilization, but against these really dive-prone, aggressive feudal civilizations that can push the issue with good economies behind them. Something like Macedonian is another good example of this. It would be kind of a similar-looking game almost if it was Macedonian instead of Sengoku. I think it's very difficult for them, because they don't want to stay and fight in the feudal age, but they often can't survive if they go to the castle age in these positions. So it makes it very difficult for you in terms of game plan. What do you even do? What are you fighting for in the feudal age, if not just to buy yourself space to even be in an even position with your opponent? And it results in this if you can't make it materialize, which is so difficult to do. But as you mentioned, he has the map pick, and we already have it confirmed. Anotand looks to lean on one of his best, the Malians, up against Puppypaw's Delhi, and this is a classic matchup by now, isn't it? And it feels like every time we see it, someone else wins.
That is the issue, I think, between these civilizations. We had a clear counter between these. I remember a few seasons ago, you would go on ladder, you'd be like, oh, big Malians, oh no, Delhi, they're going to destroy me. Then all of a sudden, things flipped. But now we're getting into that weird position where with the Sofas, a lot of what they can do, it feels a lot more slippery than the Ghazis do, because they just hit so much harder when they get on your eco. But that's why I feel like Dry Arabia is a bit of a safer pick when you're up against the Malians anyway. But what I love to see is the fact that Anotand was just like, no Japanese for you. We know what this can do. I just felt your Sengoku. I'm not going to give you the parent civilization. At the same time, Puppypaw also doesn't want to face off against that China and would rather go up against the Malians, which China has been one of the civs that we also don't know exactly where to place, because a lot of players are banning it. Some just leave it out completely, but it doesn't feel like it's one of those first pick civilizations all the time. It is very, very situational. And Puppypaw tells us Malians is the one I will shut down instead. Now, with the meta on Malians, where do you think we land with that, with the food situation going up against someone like the Delhi?
It's a difficult one to call, because at the end of the day, again, it becomes a matter of survival, doesn't it? That's what Anotand's going to have to do. He's going to have to survive until he has those cows necessary to really exceed Puppypaw's income by a significant margin. Puppypaw who looks to the Delhi to secure him the victory in the semi-final. Anotand makes Malians his stand here to look to recover and tie up this series yet again. And Dry Arabia is the map of choice. So Anotand looking to lean on the classic here, the most staple of all maps, wanting to simply outplay Puppypaw on an even ground with no shenanigans. Although plenty of shenanigans on offer here with these two civilizations for sure.
Now, Puppypaw is going for a nice little interesting scouting pattern here. And I absolutely love to see what these players do on Dry Arabia. Because with Dry Arabia, the sheep, sometimes these boys just cluster. But Puppypaw, he's going to go straight to see what is cooking here. 5 sheep on his scout. And I would love to see what the other one does. But he does spot that gold, so he knows exactly where he needs to hit later on. And Puppypaw on the other side. Let's go see what Anotand found with his, double gold, as well as our observers pointing out on the opposite side here. Now, I want to take a second to also look at that mini-map the moment we're done with the scouts. Look, yeah, there we go. We don't have the same gold situation here for Puppypaw. Now, luckily for him, he's playing the Delhi. But if this was a Malian spawn, you would be in a pretty tough spot as far as this goes, because they are very exposed. Now, Anotand, though, he's got a pretty good spot for the Malians and getting the gold up in a safe manner, especially when the Delhi aggression comes out here.
Aggression is going to be the name of the game here for Puppypaw. You have to put pressure on those Malians and lead the matchup through map control with those sacred sites, with those raids using the Ghazi Raiders, the mass that you can exceed on the sofa initially. It can get very tricky later on, but if you're able to get that lead from the get-go with the Delhi, then you look to run away with that lead later on, either with a castle timing and then a death push, or potentially even stalling out the game up to way beyond the Fulani even matters into that Imperial Age. Either is an option depending on the game state here for Puppy, but initially, of course, it's going to be the Dome of the Faith, matched against the Mansa Quarry here from Anotand's Malians.
Now, with Mansa Quarry, you have your pretty standard age up, and you got a lot of answers to switch through. When your gold gets under pressure, you still have that solid trickle of gold, even when it gets a little bit heavy. But what I wanted to talk about for a second here is yesterday, we saw Malians play a little bit differently. One of our players yesterday decided not to opt for a cow boom, but rather just go for pure units and focus everything into that, especially with civilizations that are used to you just sitting back and doing your Malian eco things. So I would love to see how Anotand adapts to the fact that we're going to be up against some pretty aggressive Ghazis early on. So he probably does not want to give Puppypaw that breathing room to just capture all the sacred sites and get further ahead. Now the wood lines here are pretty nice for him, so he won't be in too much danger when those raids do happen. But at the same time, what is he going to prioritize here? Because a lot of people, they go for that stable early on, even when up against the Ghazis. But at the same time, you want to get your Donzers out to handle the Ghazis when they do get a little bit close.
Yeah, that's the difficulty with the Sofa, right? Although they are stronger, pound for pound, than the Ghazi Raider, the issue becomes the speed as well as the healing. If you want to raid with those Sofas, you better be damn well aware of where those Ghazi Raiders are, because one Sofa peeled off to the gold is suddenly surrounded by 3 Ghazis, and Sofa is like, snuff, guess I'm dead, and it's all over from then on. And you have to be so careful with those trades, because you lose a Sofa here, a Sofa there, and before long, you're so behind in military count that you can no longer survive the dive.
Now, this is a pretty solid loot here for Anotand as he goes and delivers the food to all the hungry villagers just ready to gather. But we do see that stable instantly coming down for Puppypaw. As is standard, the man is going to be pumping out those Ghazis, just getting out here, ensuring that Mr. Malian's Anotand does not boom too much with all those pit mines. But we do see the villager already building on top of that second pit mine for Anotand, so he is ready to capitalize off of all of this. And he needs to get every bit of gold that he can, because once the Ghazis come, his responses are going to need to be perfect. We do see the barracks being the first choice here, and it makes a lot of sense. You're playing it safe, and you're going to have an answer to most of what's coming to your base.
Second pit mine here is really early by Anotand. He's looking to get as much of it up as he can before those first Ghazi raiders look to interrupt it completely. A greedy opening, but one that can pay fruit later on. Double Broadaxe has also been prioritized by Anotand, so looking to go for his economic upgrades instead of any early cows, which is always an interesting choice, I find. It's going to be the Donzo opener as well, so no Sofa reliance here by Anotand, at least initially. You might just look for these Donzo to secure his secondary pit mine, and then he can look to go into that cavalry if he chooses. I know Anotand is one of the types of Malian players who does love to go for that full melee composition. The Donzo, alongside the Sofa, can be very prudent up against Archer Ghazi, but oftentimes the Delhi will have no issues mixing in spears, and that's when it gets quite a bit more complicated for the Malians. Because then, with the tri-composition, with Scholars mixed in for the Delhi, that's a tough fight for you as the Malians, very tough indeed, especially with the Sacred Side gold ticking behind us the whole time, as it's so easy for the Delhi to just directly buy wood, buy food if they need to, keep remassing endlessly and take good fight after good fight.
And I love how quickly Puppypaw is pivoting here to archers. He's making sure that when these Donzos do arrive, he's gonna find a quick solution to them. Blacksmith also coming out early on here, and with the Donzos, they got some good hits on the Ghazis, but Puppypaw is playing it safe. He pulls the Ghazis back instantly. Doesn't want to overcommit, get one too low, because with those scholars, you want to get them researching for as long as possible before you start moving out. But it's getting to that point where he's gonna start moving out. The capture of the Sacred Site is imminent, but Sofas are in the composition already. Anotand is ready for that archer switch, and these archers are going to need to be so careful. But what you said earlier about those Sofas, they don't heal up like we see with the Ghazis, and very quickly, if the Sofa gets targeted, he falls or just gets to a point where you can easily snipe him out, and your Ghazis just get to go back and heal back up.
These are the situations where the extra 2 damage against heavy units for the Ghazi Raiders comes in so handy. That mace cracking through that plate armor that they have very easily indeed. And it's going to make it very difficult to find good fights here for Anotand. He needs a decisive fight whenever one occurs. He cannot let these Ghazis disengage and heal up, as that is when the value will be accrued and the fights will start getting harder and harder for him. But that is the difficult thing to do here as the Malians. The first Sacred Site capture is on the way. Puppypaw opts for the far right one instead of going for the center, perhaps realizing the center one is actually skewed a bit closer towards Anotand's base than his, so it might make it tricky for him to capture it. This is what we mean, the Sofa. 2 of them look to cancel that side, but are met by so many Ghazi Raiders, and they are already getting chipped away.
Now, these Ghazis are very happily trading here. As we see, they just run out a little bit faster. Gets in, gets a hit off, and turns back. Snarf, they go far away, running for their lives. But they know they're just going to go heal up and take this fight yet again. The Sofas, though, they need to be looking at a different plan here. What are we going to do? Because if we hit, we have to kill something. We can't just keep taking these trades.
Exactly right. One of the Ghazis now pulls back to be healed, hopefully. And Puppypaw, that's what we're talking about, right? He has to be so careful because he has the advantage over long drawn-out engagements. He can peel the units back and heal them, but in a direct head-on fight, well, that composition is very scary for Anotand indeed. We speak about this dynamic constantly. Full melee, spears alongside cavalry against cavalry archers. It's so difficult for the cavalry archer player from a micro perspective. it's so much harder to control and micro to kite effectively, screen for your archers with the cavalry, whereas realistically, all the melee player has to do, he just has to make sure that he goes past your cavalry with his cavalry on top of your archers. It's, you know, it's not exactly difficult, frankly, but that's what makes it so effective. It allows you to focus on other things, and that is why it's such a great composition to go for. And Puppypaw recognizes this, which is why spears are now on the way as well.
Now, Anotand is floating quite a bit of gold in the bank, and this speaks volumes about what Puppypaw is doing to the poor man. He's spreading him into every single corner, attacking on multiple fronts, because that's the problem when you're fighting up against Delhi. You need to be everywhere. So Anotand he was on one cow, but he has since eaten said cow, and the poor man he's got no cow economy pumping in. So this is not the same Malian's pressure we usually see out of people. This is a very starving, hungry Malians who is going to need to move out onto the map pretty soon if he wants to keep making these units constantly. But he does give some pretty good pickups here, so Puppypaw needs to be careful.
Despite the lack of cows, it's not like Anotand cannot afford them. Almost 1,000 gold has been banked up by this stage. Actually spends a lot of it right now instantaneously. I think some cows probably did get queued up finally. And he definitely has the gold to do so. And that is what's going to start really propelling his food income slowly and steadily. He has been eating them for a while now. We see those carcasses underneath that town center. Actually, the layout of his base isn't very accommodating for a Fulani corral down the line, which is... well, a concern for a later day, let's say. Well, not day, but later minute in the game. As Puppypaw now keeps remassing constantly, he has actually halted space for now, which is a bit curious and actually pushes it out quite boldly despite that. He has to be very careful here not to get collapsed upon as the sofa. Now, much with the Donzos to go onto the mass, and as we said, there's very little space here, and there's not enough Ghazis here either to stem this tide. This is exactly the kind of engagement Anotand wants. These archers cannot get away. There's just no space.
And this switch just speaks volumes about the front line and how important it is to have said front line. The archers are just not enough to pick off those Donzos. So with the archer numbers dwindling, with the spear numbers dwindling, this is becoming more and more difficult. Puppypaw doesn't have access to food everywhere all the time. He is going to be dealing with an opponent who is just getting more and more as the time goes on, with 4 cows, as he snacks on yet another one. And Pro Scouts very happily bringing back some deer, but will now be shut down because, of course, you are now under the influence of Malians.
Puppypaw did wrap away all the way around to look for a raid behind this, but Anotand smells it a mile off. There's Donzos and Sofa there to meet the Ghazi. Singular Sofa peels off towards that corner berries, but is met by many Ghazis in turn. That Sofa will not last long. But Puppypaw is now forced in his base, confined in the Feudal Age, which is exactly the opposite spot he wants to be in. He should normally be the one as a Delhi to dictate the tempo in this Feudal Age. But now, with this newfound space, Anotand is able to start fully ranching those cows, already 3 in by this point in time. And if you can keep massing, this is going to get harder and harder for Puppypaw. Puppypaw will need a very, very good fight and engagement to retain some semblance of control in this game, because if Anotand can now just keep the map to himself and boom behind this, then he's a ticking time bomb.
Now we see a very scary Malian army that has no signs of slowing down. Puppypaw, though, he says, I'm going to keep producing too, but the resources is telling us these boys might be having other thoughts in mind. Anotand, again, floating a lot of gold here, and it just speaks volumes to how much is going on the map. Because Anotand is not the kind of guy who makes a mistake like this. Now, we do see some of the villagers already snacking on the cows in a position where the Fulani is supposed to be sitting. So this is going to mean that those villagers need to finish snacking on those cows before they are going to be let free. But you see how quick Anotand is. Even with all the chaos, he pulls these villagers back, and no villager has paid the price just yet. And as the caster, I may have just given them the curse. Never mind. They're still alive, Myriad. We keep them safe. No villagers will die today.
For now. It's quite surprising indeed for how long no villagers have fallen. A good game to be a villager. At least for now, until the very first starts to fall. And like chess, once the center is built up, after the first piece falls, well, it's a massacre from then on. At the House of Learning is on the way for Puppypaw. But the Kulani Corral is on the way for Anotand as well, with already half Lani at this stage, but by the time it's finished, it will mostly be full. And the army's Puppypaw has remassed behind this as well, now adding in plenty of spears, but mostly confined to his base he still is. He has what looks like to be a nice run by, coming from all the way in the south, looking to wrap around on that wood line, whilst mobilizing in the north as well. But this force is in position here from Anotand. There's not going to be much damage found.
It feels so tough to just look at these poor cows trying to get a little bit of food trickle in there. The Ghazis, they're waiting pretty silently behind here. The problem for them is there's a bunch of donzos that are just waiting to snipe, but they do get pulled back, and Puppypaw is in a perfect spot here to just snack on a few villagers if he so wishes. Now, he will spot these vills coming to build out, and they are in prime position to get sniped. The charge comes on in, and the villager will finally pay the price, and we have the first kill of the game. But the donzos, they will take some victims alongside them.
Meanwhile, Anotand looking to deny the relics from Puppypaw and get his own raid going, as first blood economically is drawn, like you had mentioned. Wololo comes in here from Puppypaw as he spots the sulfur. That's going to be enough to buy time for the spears to protect the scholar. But the raid is yet mostly unchecked here. Couple of spears look to be the sulfur, but 4 sulfur against 2 spears, well, we know how that goes, as we saw right there. And the Kulani is definitely a bit of a problem here. There's so much necessary infrastructure in the way, this can't really be filled effectively. Even some chopped trees are still in the way at this point. Heavy stone mining underway here by Puppypaw. He might look to get a keep up here, or maybe some replacements, but he's not in a position to do so, as the sulfur are just carving through these archers. Meanwhile, Anotand has his veterancy, and by now, only now has Puppypaw started his archer veterancy. It's a long way off still.
And Anotand has replaceability here. We see the villagers being this far forward. They're desperately trying to get a glimpse of stone. 2 villagers falling on each side total, which just means the raids are plentiful. They're just not landing as hard as they need for Mr. Puppypaw. He needs to find more damage right now, because Malians with an even villager count is not an even match. You have Malians with unlimited food and unlimited replaceability, while you're the one who's going to be lagging behind at this point. But he is switching to men-at-arms, hoping that this is the answer, because right now what Anotand has in his army is not really an answer to men-at-arms.
It definitely is not. However, there's bigger issues here on the cards for Puppypaw, really, because the Donzos now, with a few sulfurs alongside them, look to even idle the TC out entirely. A lot of stone has been gathered by Puppypaw, but to what end? He might have been looking for a keep, but he just isn't able to actually find the breathing room to get that keep, and he knows, with the Fulani online, if he's retained to his base in early Castle Age, then there's no hope for later on, as GG is called, and once again they are neck and neck, taking us to a game 5 here.
And this is such an amazing performance from Anotand. Last week, Anotand went down 3-0 against Puppypaw, and this time he's ready for a fight, and he's showing us exactly that. Now, both of these guys still had some pretty great civilizations in their arsenal, but we can see in this game, it was just military value lead for the Malians the moment that Age 3 kicked in and the food started ticking. Even with a half Lani, it was enough for him to get ahead and still just make every unit he could ever dream of.
Even a scuffed Lani even at that point, right? It was quite bizarre to watch that layout, but that's how it goes. You're more concerned about getting what you need in right timing than really making sure the placement is perfect when you first build it. Understandable. But it is game 5, and Boldland is the map where it will all be determined. And what a matchup to determine. We've seen this yesterday already. It's going to be House of Lancaster for Puppypaw up against Macedonians from Anotand. And yeah, as we mentioned, we saw this yesterday. It was Vortex up against Wham. Vortex was behind the Lancaster, and Wham played the Macedonians. And it was an action-packed game from beginning to finish. So much blood has been spilled that game, and it looked very, very close with Wham just edging out the victory near the end there using the Macedonians. But it's a different map now. It's no longer Dry Arabia. So I wonder how much that will play into effect here with how open it is. It could, in theory, be advantageous to both sides, as they both do love going for that cavalry in the early game, which, I mean, let's be honest, pretty much every civ does. And that's going to be significant here as well, because with the small wood lines, there's big raiding potential.
This is a matchup that I'm really excited to face, or just to see these two greats pulling off. Because looking at Puppypaw and Anotand, we know that they're pretty evenly matched here. We saw the civs yesterday, like you said, and it again looked pretty evenly matched. So to get our answer, because I think a lot of Twitch chat might be like, oh, is House of Lancaster still broken? We'll find out. No. But it looked like it was a back and forth constantly, with a little bit of an overinvestment a lot of the times, which did result in a lot of pushback from Wham's side. So this now, I would like to see what Macedonians does, even if they get pressured early on, because the early pressure seemed to work yesterday. I just don't know if he's going to be able to pressure hard enough to shut down Anotand. Anotand, he is someone who can defend when he needs to, and he's really, really good at that. The problem is just the kings, or the lords at least, they are pretty chunky. And we haven't really found an answer to them until you get to a specific mass. But the problem with all of this is you have your natural counter. You're like, okay, he's going lords, I'm going to go archers. My archers debuff you. That's great. However, now you're switching into hobblars, and all of a sudden the hobblars are just going to destroy the archers. So that it feels like a pretty heavy back and forth. And Lancaster always seems to come out ahead in it. Macedonians, though, they do have a little bit more of an answer to that composition. So with the early Varangians too, they already have something a little bit beefier to handle what comes through. And most importantly, if they can get to the Radari stage of the game in Feudal, it becomes a lot easier with that champion on your side.
It's true. The Radari champion in Feudal Age is just... yeah, it's disgusting. Let's be completely honest here. It's absolutely insane, that unit. It's stronger than a Castle Age Radari. It's in the Feudal Age. It will absolutely decimate anything that Puppypaw can make. He needs just a ridiculous amount of space to deal with that one unit, frankly, and obviously the unit can just then run away and heal for some reason. So that's also a reality. But really, I think when we think about it, the matchup is somewhat simple in the essence. My prediction really is that if Puppypaw is able to deal a lot of damage and ideally kill Anotand in the Feudal Age, then he's golden, maybe with the Castle Age timing if necessary. But if this goes to Castle Age on even grounds, the Macedonian, Radari, and the upgrades, it's going to be too much. It's going to be too much. Lancaster no longer has that punch of the old manners that carries through the length of the game. It falls off very quickly now. If they aren't able to get a significant lead in that Feudal Age, they sort of fizzle out rather unceremoniously.
And with the Macedonians, I feel like the mobility is their key to shutting down a lot of what Lancaster does. But guys, let's hop on in, look a little bit at those spawns and understand exactly what this type of aggression is going to show us. Here we go with the barracks opening. Myriad, we're back. There's action. Hell yeah.
That's right, and barracks opening from Puppypaw's Lancaster here in the color red to shut down Anotand's gold gathering immediately. And I think more and more players are discovering that this is the way against this Civ. You just have to get them off gold. No gold means no silver, which means no upgrades. And that is how you deal with it, right? If Macedonians are just able to get as much gold as they can possibly need, that is how they can keep getting that upgrade advantage. So why not get started in the Dark Age with that denial? And Lancaster, the perfect civilization poised to retain that aggression and make sure that Anotand doesn't get a lick more gold than absolutely necessary.
Now, I think for a lot of people, you see this and you're like, hey, okay, how am I supposed to handle this? This map, it already has a little bit of a natural handling, and we can't see the game's paused, guys. Hold on, just want to get you the best quality. It just needs a second or two to buffer there. But what we know about this is we can easily go backwards to a gold there. So Anotand is in a position where he can pivot if he eventually needs to. But with House of Lancaster getting those spears out, you're already responding to the first thing that Macedonians gets for free, horses. So definitely going to be putting it in a much better position to have it that way. So, and we're back.
We're back again, as if nothing had even happened yet. Because Puppypaw is investing into his second spear at this point in time. And that's probably where he's going to stop. 2 spears, well, as I said, he might stop at 1, it looks like, as he cancels the first one. But 2 is really all you need to deny the gold effectively, unless the opponent pulls like upwards of 6 villagers to try to fight your spears, then you don't really need any more. And if he does that, then you can still stop at 2 and just be happy with the immense idle time that you had caused. But question is, what's going to be the follow-up for Puppypaw? It pretty much has to be units, realistically, doesn't it? You can't... There's no more your castle shenanigans for Lancaster. You could, in theory, but I just don't see how there can be much of a timing here, really. Macedonian has good answers to Castle Age units. They have their own Varangians, which can even beat Castle Age Varangians if they... Castle Age men-at-arms if they well upgraded enough, but besides that, the archers with enough damage can also do fantastic work.
Now you have to wonder, with these thin little wood lines, is Anotand going to get enough before the pressure keeps arriving? Now we do see the Hippodrome coming out, and ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're ready for a lot of horsing around, because with the Macedonians, it's almost for free. Now, with no gold, this does make the Macedonians a little bit less potent, initially at least, but your biggest concern is going to be how much wood do you get to gather before House of Lancaster is just going to comfortably come onto your wood lines with their lords and not even break a sweat. So Puppypaw is going to be a little bit delayed compared to Mr. Anotand, and he knows this. Only aging up with 1 for now, and he hasn't changed this yet. Is this man... Oh, he's just going for 1. He says, I don't need the Lord. I don't need presence. The man has already reacted. He's already preparing for more spears. But more spears will not be the name of the game. Oh my goodness, Maria. What is this? Is this a fast... No, it can't be a fast castle.
Has to be, right? There's no other reason why you would age up this way except to go for a fast castle, which it makes perfect sense for. I mean, of course, only 1 villager building the landmark means optimal efficiency on the rest, as they can be working instead of building at the same time, since, I mean, what do you get from the Abbey? Well, it's just a Lord. The Lord's going to come anyway. You don't plan on moving out with that Lord, so it's just, you know, it's going to sit on the defensive just fine. And this is an interesting theory here by Puppypaw. He's definitely throwing a spanner in the mix here, because with this fast castle play, which, I mean, is the only thing that makes sense, really, as we said, then he might be able to undercut the timing of the Macedonians. And because of this Golden Isle, it's all because of this Golden Isle that this strategy is even thought of here by Puppypaw, I'm sure. But, of course, the Golden Horn Tower is a very real possibility. So just like the English can often barely survive a castle timing because of the White Tower, the Macedonians can survive in a very similar fashion because of the Golden Horn Tower. So I'm very curious as to how this timing works out here for Puppypaw exactly. And as we mentioned, it's not like Anotand's going to have no units on the field. By the time the White Tower for Puppypaw is finished, he's going to have the Hippodrome Scout, the Hippodrome Horseman. All of these are actually decent units that can hold those 3 initial Earl's Guard. This is... yeah, I mean, this is wild. No mana either.
This is very, very risky for Puppypaw, because you actually need to find a spot to put that White Tower. And right now, with the units on their way, they are not going to let you leave your base. So I love seeing that Anotand is rallying his units all the way forward to shut down and get some level of presence on the map. He doesn't have the gold for this just yet, and now he's forced off of gold completely. The other gold to the south is definitely not going to be accessible with the extra horsemen already in queue. Mariette, I think he's stuck.
I think we have... you know, I don't want to be premature about this, but I think we have a severe blunder on our hands here, unfortunately. You know, the lack of a tower is a real concern, because you can't even gather gold anymore. And besides that, even if you had a tower, the Hippodrome Scout, that's gonna allow Anotand to very easily torch that tower if there was one in the first place. Notable detail here, however, on Boldland, right, is we have that central gold, but we also have a very sneaky safer gold towards the right there, which, I mean, enough villagers will get the White Tower up, make no mistake, but at what price potentially here? Because Anotand keeps investing. Even Anotand seems just a little confused about what's going on, because now he's going into space as well, even though it's not necessary. And I don't blame him, because what are we even seeing here, right? We could, in theory, sell the food to get the gold needed here, but what are we really playing for?
Now, what Puppypaw has decided to do is instead going for the handful of lords, goes for the tower. He realizes, hey, maybe the tower was necessary. But Anotand doesn't care. He's just making more and more units. He knows the power of the horses, and he knows the power of just having that presence. But the problem is, Puppypaw cancelled the lords completely. He had 2 in queue, and he's like, nah, we are going castle. I'm going exactly to where I wanted to be. Thing is, you don't have a lot of gold, Chief. This is going to be a lot harder to actually get something out of that castle age. So what do you get with this? Are you going to be able to just white tower the gold in front of your base and then have access to it? It seems like that could be the plan.
It seems increasingly that might be the only plan here. I mean, what turned from potentially being a castle timing is more of a castle survival at this point is looking like for Puppy. It's just, I mean, it was an interesting test of timing, but now we know at least that it just doesn't really align, does it? Look at the food. Only now has the gold finally come in, and where are we placing this? We can't even actually effectively secure either gold here, I would say, without a lot of idle time or even sacrificing a couple of villagers. Yeah, this is what I mean. He places it on the front, but straight away it gets immediately punished by Anotand, who now dives underneath. First villager kill, bites the dust. And even more on the way, because there's archers who can shoot from outside the TC range. This is getting worse and worse for Puppy.
Puppypaw looks like that little kid who's on the meme who's drowning. And he's not the skeleton underwater just yet, but right now he's drowning in a sea of units. Villagers being pulled back from that gold. Problem is, they're being pulled back from gold. But what gold are you going for after that? Those archers are just going to pepper your little villagers as they dare touch the gold that is just so slightly forward. Villagers, again, forced off. He's feeling confident. He's all the way under that TC. There's not enough space for the villagers. And they start falling like flies. One by one, those horses are making their way through them. And Anotand says, get out of my game. Anotand's the law. I'm going to be going to the finals.
Yeah, it's a disaster here from Puppypaw. An experiment that has backfired worse than Frankenstein here for him, because so many villagers have fallen here for Puppypaw, and this White Tower is still nowhere near getting up, and it will not go up. The 4 archers can just sit there and kill this lord as well if they so choose, and keep harassing those villagers, keep causing idle time. This is very unfortunate here for Puppypaw, but it's the price we pay sometimes for experimentation. I understand the appeal. I'm not sure if this is practiced or not, but sometimes you just get an idea and it seems really good on paper, and in theory it might work very, very well. The potential is there, but the timing, it's always the timing. It's always down to just a few seconds or a tower or something missing, which can ultimately make it backfire so painfully.
Now, there are 3 Earls Guards, but these Earls Guards, they are going to need to do a lot of work to really make up for all of the differences that we saw in Puppypaw's base. And another Earls Guard in queue. Puppypaw says, maybe this is my way in. I know you don't necessarily have an answer to my types of units, so let's just see if I can land a similar attack. And theoretically, he possibly could, but you can see these archers, they are standing at the ready, and these guys debuff. So those Earls Guards aren't going to be as powerful as they need to be. Now we just see the Radari champion on the field, and this is where things get even hairier for Puppypaw, because those Earls Guards, they might be great, but are they going to be great enough against that Radari champion?
Yeah, I think the Radari champion will be a very harsh reality check here for Puppypaw, is the truth. This unit is just absolutely on another level. He can kill all 4 of them by himself, I guarantee it. That is the harsh reality of what's going on in this moment. And Anotand behind this, he's already starting to bank, right? The food is there, the gold is soon to follow. He has complete free reign on the map. I'm surprised he didn't even try to take that boar, potentially, instead just opting for the central deer there. But yeah, this Radari champion is just going to absolutely massacre any unit he comes across. And if he ever gets too low, he can just go back and then heal. You can see just how much time he is buying Anotand here. And of course, we have the Golden Horn Tower. It's not like the age up is that much of a moment of vulnerability here for Anotand. He can just age up, and then he's completely safe, and all of a sudden has the better economy, the bigger army, and the more comfortable position as well.
You can see with those Earl's Guards, he really tried to make this happen. A little bit of focus onto the champion, hoping that it falls, but it does not. And now the lords are being made. We see knights from Puppypaw, but this man is struggling to make any unit here because, of course, his resources are getting thinner and thinner. With only 380 food per minute, this is not the economy you need if you want to face off against this killer Macedonian army. And right now, we can see that fight is taking place, but behind this, Anotand is not too worried. He's thinking about castle, he's still making units as this is happening, and winning the fights between all of this.
Yeah, Puppypaw looking to go into knights now as well, but it seems like it's a too little too late, really. Castle Age is just around the corner here for Anotand, and he's still pushing Puppypaw all the way back to his base. Behind this, only now, is Wheelbarrow on the way for Puppypaw. Still no mana boosting any of his economy. At this point, his economy is just as baseline level as Anotand's on the Macedonian here, but without Anotand's economic upgrades, as both Macedonians just have a completely stock standard economy, as we know, outside of the war camp, which gives them a little tax rebate, you could call it, I guess. It's a unit rebate. And it's getting increasingly tougher to see the avenues to victory here for our people. There's just not really... There's nothing there, is there?
Now, Puppypaw has to ask himself, how am I going to handle once the Radari arrives? Because now, once he hits castle, that tower is going to protect the little wood line, his little gold, his base in general. And the units can start going towards Puppypaw and taking out all those villagers that are slowly chopping away at the wood lines, at the gold, and easily pick off what they need to do. Puppypaw goes for something, at least, trying to find a bit of damage with his units, as he knows that he's going to need them to defend pretty soon. And we see a Radari already in queue. Anotand knows what's good. And what's good is horses. And these horses, with all of their champions, are ready to take the fight back to Puppypaw's base, no matter where that white tower may be.
Anotand is going to lose this forward stronghold. That was a little safety net for his there, but it's a small price to pay for a little raid at the same time. He picks up another villager. And the beauty or the horrible thing about Macedonians, depending on your perspective, is that really from this point on, all Anotand has to do is sit back and do nothing. He just has to wait to get as much silver as he possibly can, get crossbows for free, get upgrades for free with that silver, and eventually his units will become so potently strong, those Radari as well as the range units, when he gets to the third tier upgrades, that he can just run over any army Puppypaw can make. Puppypaw's hope relies now on getting an immense amount of damage through raids, but the amount of damage he has to find is almost inconceivable. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's still struggling to deal with his own economy being raided due to the sheer tempo that Anotand now possesses. Finally, we have the first mana now on the way, alongside that deer and the berries, but we'll need a lot more than that.
Puppypaw is desperately trying to claw his way out of his base for food. Anotand is getting those Radari numbers up and up and up, and one Radari at a time can raid every single red dot we see there on the map. And now Puppypaw is trying to force him to stay in his base. He knows where he cannot attack, but he needs to find a place where he could. And right now, it just doesn't feel like there's any vulnerability there for Anotand. Anotand, again, we can see one Radari at a time, going to find a little bit of food villagers to try and just get himself even further ahead. Another villager falling, 12 total now, 13th on his way, and the Radari champion walking his way forward, trying to lead the army to a victory there. And with the numbers increasing, we're almost at 10 Radari, and Puppypaw does not have a single counter to this.
No, he does not. Even just the free crossbowmen created by the Golden Horn Tower were just obviously the excellent answer to everything Puppypaw has been making so far. The Lords, the Osgard, as well as the Knights. So far, Puppypaw has been relegated to just on the defense the entire game so far, just always forced to deal with these raids. And what makes it even more painful is that he needs so much more to answer these raids than what Anotand's expending. These Radari are going to make very quick work of these Knights if they just stop and fight. I mean, there's an HP advantage now, so maybe not anymore, but beforehand. And they can just run away because, for some reason, Mareka, they're also faster.
Radaris are just the horse we dream of, and there's another group about to raid more villages at the top. And you can see he's not scared to sacrifice a single one of these. He's like, I'll just make more. I've got this. And we can see this with the resources. Now his gold running out, so he does need to think about that secondary gold, but he's got the control of the map. He could go anywhere he wants. Puppypaw is the one who's just backing off and trying to respond to all these raids. Now, with all of the horses guarding the gold here, he's not having a single worry on his mind. He's asking himself, what unit do I go into next? And apparently that's just getting his heroes back on the field so that his army can be even more inspired and just make those raids even smoother. But this is getting to that scary amount where Puppypaw, he's got a bunch of knights, he's got some Ul's guards, and with the upgrades coming in, we see the level 3 upgrades coming in, which means those horses are going to be even beefier. Not much is going to be able to kill them.
And when the Radari count starts exceeding the Knight count of Puppypaw, that's when the news starts getting really, really dire indeed. Puppypaw has expanded to a second manor by now, but in theory his economy is better as the House of Lancaster. When those manors do get up and are surrounded by villages, the generation can look very healthy indeed. But if we look at the numbers right now, that's not really the tale we're seeing, is it? I mean, Anotand has been on those better food sources earlier. He had that there, and he has had his economic upgrades going for a long, long time now. And these Radari are just running rampant, unchecked. Puppypaw cannot contain them. Wherever the Radari go, they can go. Wherever they please, they will go. And that will not really stop for this point in time. The army numbers continue to swell for both players, but Anotand's is just swelling so much faster. And as we mentioned, time is not on Puppypaw's side at all. The silver just keeps coming in, and the more silver comes, the more upgrades. The more upgrades, the better the units, as if they weren't good enough already. Puppypaw now, I think, recognizes this and thinks to himself that the only way to actually win this at this point is to ensure that the game goes for about 20 or 25 more minutes.
And getting that second TC, it feels like a desperation move here to just claw his way back through with all those villager losses that he knows he's suffered. Radari's just coming in, picking off 2 villagers, getting back out. And that is going to be the reality for Puppypaw. Getting that second TC out there, it feels okay, but your wood line is barely going to last you a few minutes. This is a tough spot all around because the Radari, if they just find their way onto the TC, they can kill anything that dares live under there too. And right now, it feels like that TC is just a big tower for villagers to hide in once the raids land.
Anotand looking to secure these berries here, has plenty of Radari on the lookout to make sure that happens without any real hiccups. Well, there's plenty of idle time on Puppypaw's own berries in turn. There's units here to meet them, but if we're being honest, Anotand could actually take that fight without any real issues at all. Although the Knights might change that.
And we see Anotand, I would say, playing it safe behind all of this, ensuring that he doesn't split his units up, resulting in a handful of losses. But Puppypaw, he knows where the strength is. He needs to find a way to keep this army as thin as possible. Now, usually at this point of the game, Anotand's the kind of guy who sends a bunch of raiding groups at the same time, but him keeping these together shows you he doesn't want to risk anything. He knows what he's done. He knows where he's at. And Puppypaw is hoping for that bit of breathing room. Now with his spearman switch, he's going to try to find an answer to this, but the Radari, the numbers are still just so scary, but it looks like he's thinking about committing here, but he's scared off very, very quickly. The spearmen are quite intimidating here, but the villagers slowly tapping out those berry bushes too.
Yeah, there's no real need for Anotand to commit here. He can bide his time and just keep waiting to get further and further ahead in military and silver here to keep getting those upgrades. Puppypaw is scaling the 2TC now, however. He still finds himself quite behind in villages, But theoretically, if this does go long enough, then Puppypaw is not in a terrible position, and Lancaster still very much to be feared in the late game. The Yeoman's still a powerhouse of a unit. The value eked out by the Wingard Palace, if he does opt for it, is also not to be underestimated. And the more and more manas are added, again, the economy is going to look healthier and healthier. We see just that one mana alone generating over 150 resources a minute. So, Puppypaw, if he gets himself the necessary space, he can potentially survive this long enough, but I feel like Anotand is just going to keep taking more and more of the map to himself now. Relic Gathering is now underway. It has been delayed for both players, but now it has commenced. And Anotand is likely going to take the sacred sites as well as the whole map for himself. And then he has a choice to make. He can either look to actually commit into Puppypaw, raid from all angles, deal an immense amount of damage, or slow down a little bit and look to set up his own economy slightly more solidly as well, maybe with a second town center, or look for a full sacred side hold instead.
Now this army looks like it's ready to fight, and Puppypaw is definitely not. So backing off right now, but he's trying to hit where it hurts, and that's going to be on the villagers. The problem is the reinforcements are standing at the back, and Anotand, with his transition into getting those Bogmajirs, he's trying to find a way to deal with the spears. But even with those numbers, the knight numbers are pretty scary. The crossbow mix-in makes this a little bit simpler for him, but he is getting to a point where he still needs to be the one doing damage. Oh, and he snipes a villager just like that, throwing some weapons right at those faces, completely splitting in half and ensuring that the villager count doesn't go too far ahead. But at this point, Puppypaw has caught up, and with those manas, he's kind of matching the income here, if not outdoing the income for him. But like you said, these upgrades are critical, and they are usually the game changer. But now Puppypaw is the one moving out, and with most of his army moving to the other side of the map, he may hit hard, but does Anotand hit harder?
That might be the case here, because although Puppypaw is moving forward with his knights now to trying to find some damage, at the same time, Anotand is moving in directly behind Puppypaw's base and looks to challenge his army, and most of Puppypaw's knights are out of position. He's trying to go back now to try to address this death push that's coming into his base, but is he going to be there in time? Villagers are already falling like flies. That little advantage Puppypaw had accrued with the second TC is now gone.
Now, with all of these units here, they can start burning down manors if they so please. They can get the second TC. All he's got right now is a lot of idle time on his opponent, and this must feel good. Anotand realizes, hey, he could have caught up by now. He sees that second TC, understands I need to most likely do something about this anyway. But Puppypaw, he lost a significant portion of that army that is going to be hard to replicate in a while. Anotand doing that farm transition and just keeping himself a little bit safer here. Puppypaw's idle time on that TC still, villagers completely shaken up, and the relics are looking great for the Anotand.
Exactly. Puppypaw with a surge of confidence now, looking to move out. He might potentially be sniffing the Anotand, could go for something like an Imperial behind this. I look to punish it, but yeah, it looks like it's a different idea entirely, as he looks to go directly underneath the Golden Horn Tower, and everything pretty much is now pulled to try to snipe this. We've seen Puppypaw do this before. Great damage being dealt, to be fair, but I don't think there's enough here to address the issue. The Golden Horn Tower is gonna go down, but everything Puppypaw has is getting massacred. The units are trapped as well, so even if they did successfully torch this landmark, which they hadn't, then they would be unable to move on to the next one. And with the last Hail Mary, Puppypaw makes a grand exit this week, and Anotand secures himself in the finals.
Now that was quite the bang. The boys were pulled. The boys were just not enough. And it makes a lot of sense. You're up against the landmark of death. Anotand taking his place in the finals and taking down Puppypaw from last week, which this must feel pretty good. Anotand on a roll right now. Going to be watching very closely to understand whether Wham or Beastie is going to be his next victim.
Indeed. He gets a little bit of respite now to watch the upcoming series and dissect it in his mind as he watches it to see exactly what he's likely to go up against next. It's a bit of an advantage for sure, being on this side of the bracket. That way, you get a little bit of rest before going into the final. But then again, some people do prefer being on the second side and going into the final straight away, carrying through that tempo and that adrenaline almost into the series that matters most.
What I love to see about this is the fact that we got a different variety of civilizations making its way through, like the Ottomans, for example. Now, the French is still reigning supreme. We got to see a little bit more action here on Baldland with civs that aren't knight heavy. Now, you can argue that Macedonians, they are kind of a pseudo knight civilization, having that champion in Feudal. It does take a while to get there. So definitely seeing a bit different of a lineup from what we saw yesterday. And I think this is the critical part. What we see in the top 16 is definitely not what we see here in the top 4. And what determines the meta, I guess, only these top players will know. Because the rest of us dance on ladder, we just don't get this type of variety as well. But also, with these players, both of them opting for a lot more blue on the maps. A lot of the players in the top 16 also aiming at getting land maps. And these guys being very comfortable with getting into that hybrid situation as well. But guys, it's time for the interview. Let's go hear what Anotand has to say about his performance.
Indeed, we're joined by the one and only Anotand of Team VS, no less. No biases there at all whatsoever. Anotand, big congratulations on what a stunning series.
Yeah, like... yeah, I don't know, I gambled hard with my draft, I think you saw it, right? So, like, I gambled and I won.
Yeah.
It's good to have
that
revenge.
is something I was gonna... Yeah, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have revenge versus Puppy, like, last time I lost to him without any chance, and now it was pretty even serious, so I feel like I can win versus anyone in this tournament. I mean, it's for a while, right? I'm in really good shape. We'll see how it goes, yeah.
I think as well, and I agree with you completely, right? It does feel good to get revenge. I understand your perspective completely, and I'm sure you'd agree, right? Just because of the result last time, it's not the way it goes, right? Like days play a big impact on how we feel and how we perform. From one day, we'll have a completely different level compared to the next day, right? I mean, he won 3-0 last time, but if you played again the day after that day, you could have easily 3-0'd him. And now it's a 3-2 today, right? It's always very interesting to see how like consistency is one of the big struggles at this level of competition, I think. I wonder if you agree with that.
Yeah, and it's like best of 5, right? So like you can be a bit unlucky, lost one game and then you're out, right? So yeah. I mean, Puppy played incredibly well, but I think I gambled so hard with my draft. Like he get 2 free wins, right? Basically at hybrid maps. I feel like Mongol to Clark is that matchup, and I beat Sengoku as well. But my land matchups, I know them pretty well, and I think I execute every my win pretty clear.
That is what I was wondering about as well, because yeah, the hybrid maps are very interesting because there's very specific civilizations and matchups on them that have really varying dynamics in the way they play out. And as you mentioned, Tughlaq and Mongols, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, Tughlaq's economy is just so potent. They're safe on their docks in the Dark Age. It's very hard for you to find any kind of significant damage or timing here to do anything, right? So that's the way it manifests.
Yeah.
But then, surprisingly, as you mentioned in the draft, you let Ottomans through, which is crazy, right?
I saw Puppy played Ottoman yesterday, and like I watched his build order, his execution, even though it was a short game, and I thought like I can deal with it. So yeah. But yeah, to be honest, if I lost Socotra game, it will be like 0-3, right? So like it's super random. But yeah, my gamble was good today.
It worked out very well around that fights on the ball. I mean, once you got the ball and then your excellent control with the knights, getting so much value out of them, picking off units here and there, getting rid of the imams quite early. The healing factor is always very important to remove. It all paid off very well in the long run indeed. Sengoku Ayubi's, on the other hand, on Frisian Marshes. Now, I went into this with the preconception that this is typically pretty hard for Ayubids, especially on this kind of a map. It's very tough to fight in the Feudal Age, and then if you want to go castle, it's tough to survive getting to castle in the first place, right?
Yeah, yeah. But the problem is, I think it's the only one game where I played bad. Like, my macro was not on point. Like, I'm playing full Feudal Age, and at some point I have, like, 700 foot. Like, if you play in bad matchup, you can't play like that. So, yeah. It's the only game in this best of 5 where I, like, ashamed of my play.
It can happen, right? Keeping it all throughout the best of 5 series, it's not easy, but it's important to keep cool after those games and keep going, which you definitely did, because in Delhi against Malians, another really close matchup. We've seen it go back and forth for what feels like over a year now. And I did know in the past that you are one of those players with Malians that loves to go for this Sofa Donzo combination into the Archer Ghazi from Delhi, which, if you full commit to it with the way you did, without cows initially, it seems to do amazing work, and you can take away the map control that Delhi typically has, right?
Yeah, I think I overmade Donzos, but besides that, it was totally fine. I wonder if he didn't die, like, he was a bit confident, right, with his army, and he overstepped at the middle of the map. I wonder if he didn't die, how this game went. But it will be still good for me.
Yeah, maybe in an alternate universe we can find out how that would have went, but that was well played in the end, and it all came to fruition here in game number 5, and a very interesting matchup, I gotta say. Macedonian against Lancaster. We saw this yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw the game or not, but it was Vortex up against Wham, and that was a bloodbath of a game indeed. Back and forth repeatedly. But in the end, Macedonians reign supreme, as they have here as well. Puppypaw went for a very interesting strat, though. Going directly for a naked castle, it feels... I think maybe there's a timing there, but this feels very tough to pull off, right?
Yeah, and I controlled gold pretty bad, right? I gave him enough time to get gold, so it was pretty meh, but overall I think it was still... I controlled the game like every minute, I think. Also, I was like super lucky. I'm a bit worried for my internet, but hopefully it will be not a problem at final, right?
Yeah, now at least you get some time for the IP provider to hopefully deal with that. I do want to just a quick input.
Yell at them. Yeah, I'll just scream and try to do anything.
It does work well normally. It does work well normally, because that way they can, they feel like, oh, we don't want to lose a customer, and let's make sure we give him what he wants, right? But how you feel about this upcoming matchup though? Beastie up against Wham. That's gonna be an interesting one, no? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like Beastie won like 10 previous sets, but actually Wham beat Beastie at last Red Bull Wololo. So like he also have a win streak versus Beastie at Red Bulls. Yeah.
It's true. That was a very interesting statistic to see. I remember it perfectly. So yeah, it could go either way. Hoping for a very tight.
I don't know.
Series
I think
again.
there is
love these
no
series.
yeah. I think there is no favorite. Like either Wham or Beastie can easily win, and the like score can be super random, like 3-0, 3-0 to other side, and yara. So we'll see. We'll watch.
I agree completely. Well, Anotand, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Well played yet again, my fellow teammate. Have a bit of rest and good luck in the finals.
Thank you, my friend.